her big dumb face. The longest opening sequence.
It's Alice midlife crisis.
Oh my god, it's so good, guys.
We're not told that. Yeah, we do. We're not told that. It is written. It is written.
Hello, Spider McCurdy. Spider McCurdy.
He didn't unmute himself. There, I unmuted him.
Oh,
That looks like it's made for a child.
yeah. Is that your kids?
Yeah.
It kind of looks like from the first movie, you know, where it's like super cheap. Hi, fellas.
Let's get that cheap costume, bro.
Yeah, right. What's going on, dudes?
Not
How
much.
are we doing?
This already we have a comment. This is exactly
Lazy.
how I felt. I had no idea it was a part one. I was
What?
like towards the last
It was like
quarter
felt
or
that
so.
way.
I was like, "Dang, this is a long movie."
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
It is a long movie.
And then
we'll
they
talk
did
about
the
that.
To be continued. I was like, "Oh,
We will
It was
talk
like
about that
it was like
at
the end
length.
of It, you know, where it was like It, Chapter 1. You're like, what? You know?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Nobody told
Like,
us.
oh, wait,
that it
there's
was
more?
a two-parter. Yeah. So
I felt more like Lord of the Rings.
oh,
So
Skrillex."
I
is
remember
back.
when Fellowship came out, and I remember talking to my uncle. My uncle was like, he remember seeing the film, and then like there were other people in the theater, and they were leaving, and they were like, "Wait, what? That's it?" And you're like, "Yeah, dummy, it's part of like multiple movies." And that's how I felt with this one. I was like, as I'm watching, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess they're doing another one,"
at least
which
with
makes
that,
sense. I was like, okay,
people basically knew, but yeah, I was just gonna say, as SB said, Matrix Reloaded, but like at least with Matrix, you knew it was like, hey, everybody, we're gonna round out a trilogy. So
Yeah.
but what it reminds me of is periodically what you get is a movie comes out, it's a big hit, and then they go ahead and they put into production
Back
two
to the Future.
sequels.
Back to the
I was going
Future
to say
2 and
Back to the Future, The Matrix. You know, it's not like they made That's part of the reason why Lord of the Rings is so perfect, is because they made them all at the same time versus making Fellowship, then waiting. Oh, it was a big hit. Okay, now we'll round it out. So
Yeah,
Fellowship
K1's saying
ending
the same thing
blindsided
that
me.
like these jabronis said. They were like, wait, what? There's more? Like, wait, that's
Yeah.
the end? You're like, yeah.
What
that's
happened to the ring?
Wait,
Is this supposed
wait,
to be
I
the
thought they were
end of
supposed to get the
the
ring. That's it?
Miles Morales trilogy or something?
This though, yeah, I don't know. This
We'll talk-
this
we'll
seems
talk
kind of
about it.
odd.
Let's talk about it.
This cliffhanger was like, okay, all right, cool. But anyway, K1, I was 11. K1, you have never indicated how old you are, and I have sometimes speculated based on your sense
Science.
of humor. Dude's got dad jokes out the ass, and I mean that in the best way. So just I
We're
don't
gonna
know. I
figure
don't
it
know if
out.
you're dad. I mean, you're old enough to be a dad, of
Was
course.
he?
But,
Did he see
you
it in
know,
theaters? We don't know if he saw it in theaters.
I don't think I saw the first. No, did I see? I saw the first one in
Don't know.
theaters. I think.
I definitely saw. I think I saw them
I
all.
saw all of them several times. Okay. Before going into SB's comment, Spider-Man. Let's talk about Spider-Man. Let's talk about my fucking favorite superhero ever. And that's for the record. Okay. Oh, wait. Hang on. We got to reconfigure the screen. Zoom.
Boom.
I need to be bigger than you guys. Like Snoke. I gotta be big like Snoke for this.
But why does McCurdy look like Skrillex?
I don't know. Go get a wig while I'm doing this. Go get a wig.
I don't have a wig.
And like yeah, and then like, well, yeah, you have your
Because
head is
he's an
shaved well enough.
artsy movie director now.
Yeah,
I
there
am
you
an
go.
artsy movie director.
Okay. Anyway, so Spider-Man. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse welcomes us back to the whole multiverse thing where Marvel lives now and forever, where nothing matters because there are an infinite amount of yous and everyone else, so nothing is special and nobody stays dead and everything is more confusing than ever. Miles Morales, this series' primary spider individual, at one point even says, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man," and another spider being shrugs it off as if it means nothing. And that's where we are now, stuck in this weird postmodern nihilistic hellverse. It was cute in the first movie because it only had a little taste of this and was otherwise anchored to our universe while being a fresh and fun origin, coming of age, finding his confidence story for Miles, with a straightforward plot that made the other oddball spider variants fun because we had a good time learning their vaguely similar backstories, and then it was all about getting them back to their respective universes. But this sequel is nothing but alternate spider life forms going all time variance authority like Loki, where it's all about preventing the Spider-Verse from having any anomalies or something. And yet there are plenty of spider persons we meet that are an anomaly. Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman, for example, shouldn't she be Patricia Parker or something? Shouldn't the spider that bit her have bit her Peter? I don't have a problem with her, but apparently the head spider boss, Miguel O'Hara, should. His whole thing is vaguely about stopping stuff that was never meant to be, or how can things never have been meant to be if they already happened? Does this guy not understand cause and effect or free will? Does he have supreme godlike knowledge of everything that will be or should ever have been? But no, somehow anomalies cause damage or something and will destroy existence as we know it unless everyone's father figure dies. I just don't understand the point of all of this. The animation may be incredible, and I certainly admire the hell out of it, but I need me some story to give a crap. Needless to say, I much prefer the original on this one. Which,
Like Tobey Maguire?
Probably in the minority on that, but I don't really care. I watched the original this morning, and I'm just like, God damn, what a good movie. And then this one, I'm like, yeah, the art's cool. But multiverse crap.
Earth 64 is depressing.
Earth 64 is where the truth lives. That's Earth 64. Everywhere else is, I can't say a bad word about anything because I love Batman movies. I can't say a bad word about Batman. Spider-Man, I just can't critique it ever because I just denial. But no, on Earth 64, everything is about truth.
I should have rewatched the previous one.
Is it
It's
this?
awesome.
Is this the Earth you live on? This Earth you live Earth 64.
Yes, that is where I live.
64.
That's where I live.
64. All right, let's talk about Charlie's favorite movie because he has no soul.
Here I am saying the first one like brings me to tears several times, and then this one's like, I'm angst. I can't tell anybody.
Give me a 30-second recap of the previous one.
30-second recap. Okay, so
especially with the Peter Parker thing that they lean on heavily in this one that I was like, I don't remember.
30-second recap is Miles Morales, just average New York kid, but very much like Peter Parker, where he's just like gifted and he's like a genius, right? But he's bitten by a radioactive spider that turns out to have come from another dimension. Kingpin, one of Peter Parker's main adversaries, is using this machine that will like open up other universes so he can get his family back. His family died. He wants his family back. And Peter Parker's trying to stop him. Peter Parker gets killed in the process. But
Peter Parker's just a guy in that one?
No. Peter Parker, like the most perfect Spider-Man ever. Because I believe it's our universe. Even though they say, instead of saying NYPD, they say PDNY. So I don't know if that's an indication that it isn't. But
maybe it's a copyright thing.
Generally, it seems as though the Spider-Man of that universe, even though it's Chris Pine as opposed to any of the other actors, so maybe that's another hint. But he's like the most perfect Spider-Man ever, right? Life's perfect for him. He is killed, but because that machine did its thing, all these other Spider individuals come to Miles's universe, and they kind of help him discover his powers and all that. But through the process, they're all sharing their collective backstories and all that. It's a lot of fun. But it is very postmodern. I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was like, this should never be anybody's first Spider-Man movie. It should not be your first Spider-Man movie. If it is, that kind of sucks. But it's I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm not kidding when I say Spider-Man is like my fave. This is I showed this off before, but this is one of my prized possessions. I got this from my lacrosse team back in school. I got the Peter Parker Award because
For taking pictures.
because all I was ever doing was climbing stuff and or taking photographs. So they gave me that, and I still have it because it's the only time anybody's acknowledged my deep desire to be Spider-Man. So, I'm gonna just put this back over here, right there. Fuck you, Nance. But so then, so they
established them like
that there is
a thing in the first one.
But it was all because of this machine, and then you get to this sequel, and it's just like run of the mill. Nobody cares. You can jump in and out of any universe whenever you want. There's this big sprawling like universal police state of multiversal police state of spider people who go around busting people who break the continuum. It's just like, and that's, I swear that's all Marvel has at this point. Marvel's just like, at this point, Marvel's just like, once you introduce the multiverse, it's just a matter of like policing that and making sure nothing interesting ever happens and that everything it follows some kind of code.
Because to a degree, we get that with the live action, like Tom Holland, right? And then there's even a Loki show where it's like a very similar.
You guys, listening to you guys is so funny because I'm like, you guys are so dumb. You just
Skrillex,
like, no idea.
Thanks, McCurdy.
I'm
glad you interrupted just to call us dumb.
Marvel has like this animated thing, and it's like, I don't understand. And I'm like,
then go watch the original. But what do you need the sequel for? I hardly got anything out of this. What was I supposed to get out of this? What was I supposed to get out of this movie that I didn't get out of the first one? I mean, the first one is like near perfection, and then this is like, I can't tell anybody who I really am.
Well, Spider-Man's always dealt with that, right?
What?
Has Spider-Man not always dealt with that? It's like,
but it's always been
very Spider-Man thing.
But it's always been nobody can know who I am for their own protection. Instead, with this, it's like
teen angst.
They're gonna be mad at me because I've been lying to them, and I'm like, that's stupid. Shut up. You're both him and Gwen are just stupid about that. But
I don't understand why that's not a
McCurdy has the same haircut as Gwen.
This followed Spider-Man 2's lead, where it's like, okay, now that he is Spider-Man, he's just really busy, and that's the difficulty is balancing his life of being a student and a good son and all that.
So again, that has always been a Spider-Man thing. That's never changed in the comics
but with
or
this,
any
it's like,
iteration of Spider-Man.
With this specifically, though, it was like, if I tell them, they're going to be mad at me for lying. That stuff was a little kind of like, eh. But what would have been interesting, what was more interesting for 2 seconds was, you were never meant to be. You're a fraud. You're a fake. But that almost would have been more appropriate in the first one, because at this point he's like, dude, I already am Spider-Man though. What the fuck are you talking about? But had somebody in the first one been like fucking with his confidence, like, you were never meant to be. That spider was meant for somebody else. You're a fraud. You're fake. Then that would have
interesting
been about his confidence issues. But anyway, Nance, you asked a question. Did that answer it at all? So
no, McCurdy, go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead. Okay. Well,
Huevos.
We should
buy a shirt. Nobody's gonna buy a shirt because they're all cucks. Moving on.
Wow.
I'm in a mood tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna mute you tonight. You're on a whole other level.
He's mad about Spider-Man.
He's mad. He's just cranky.
I'm sick of the multiverse. I'm sick of it. It was good for one movie. Do we have to do it for every movie from here on?
Are we gonna get an animated Spider-Man in a future live action Avengers movie?
All right. Well,
I'm gonna read comments while McCurdy talks.
Oh my god. Okay, cool. So first up, we've got. Hold on, let me back up here.
Wait, yeah. Here's
so we got Spider-Man.
You think every film that's successful the first time around needs a continuation? I understand the making money.
Okay, cool. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Get Renfield for
no idea.
2023. Yeah, he has no idea. I'm just gonna keep going. All right, so someone had said this is directed by 3 directors. Typically in animation, that's not unheard of to have multiple directors in animation. So you have directed by Joaquin dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. Written by Philip Lord, Christopher Miller, and David Cullum. And this is, of course, the longest
This is the longest animated film. This film is at 140 minutes, 2 hours and 20 minutes. It beats out Chucky Rand's favorite extremely long animated film, The Lord of the Rings, which is 2 hours and 13 minutes. But I should also note that this is the longest American animated movie. The longest animated film is Distracted Blueberries. That's what it's called. And it's 4 hours and 33 minutes. And it's a Canadian art film. And it's weird as shit. So I didn't watch it all. I just watched the trailer.
He still doesn't know.
He still doesn't know.
Charlie, you've been muted this whole time.
Don't fuck with my mic, dude. Please don't fuck with my mic. I have so much genius just flowing out of my face that I can't have you fucking with that.
Where can we get Charlie of this earth instead? I don't like this one. This one's a twat.
Yeah, wait,
Right.
open the portal and
let me open the portal and get like a better Charlie. I don't like this one.
We want Earth 69 Charlie. That guy's
I want
wild.
Earth 69 Charlie back because Earth 64 Charlie's a twat. Anyway, let's keep talking.
We're Scott.
Miles Morales.
You just hate new things.
Scott.
Anything new, you hate it.
Like,
that's
No.
exactly my opinion. You're right. Miles Morales is voiced by Shameik Moore, best known for the film Dope.
Shameik from fucking 212.
sorry, I have to
I've
say
never
that
seen
every
212.
time I hear his name because he plays Raekwon the chef in the Wu-Tang
Of
show.
course he does.
So and he's
That's
awesome.
your favorite show, and that's your favorite show
awesome.
right now, isn't it?
I finished it. I definitely recommend. If you like Wu-Tang, you
It's
gotta
the
watch
only
like
music
Wu-Tang.
he listens to.
Every
But
time we
he's
start
Dominique
these-
from fucking 212.
Before we start every episode, I get on and Charlie's listening to some Wu-Tang Clan, and he's just sitting there, just like jamming, just being like one with the world. And then he's not listening to it. Then he's just being a twat. So anyway, starting in 2000, Marvel has created an alternate timeline universe in the comics called the Ultimates. Basically, it was a way to retell character stories without changing current continuity. Much of the MCU is based off this version of the Marvel characters. In 2011, Marvel had made the decision to kill off its iteration of Peter Parker. So the Ultimate Universe Peter Parker created the first Black Puerto Rican Spider-Man, created by writer Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli. This Spider-Man also had new powers such as invisibility and electric shock. So of course, this is how we get Miles Morales. Now, Charlie kept going on about multiverse and Spider-Verse, and why do we have to keep doing this? Is because this is nothing new. This has always been in the comic books. So in 2014, with the creation of Miles Morales in the Ultimate Universe, Marvel had a giant Spider-Man crossover event that had Peter Parker, Miles Morales, and other Spider people team up against evil foes. I should mention that prior to this, in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon did something similar where the last two episodes where Peter Parker teams up with different iterations of himself. The comic series would introduce fans to a slew of new characters in this series called Spider-Verse.
Is there a
basically the
best
basis of it.
Spider-Man, or are they all equals? Or
They're all different, but they're all like variations of different versions of Spider-Man. So of course you've got like I think even in this movie, there's like the PlayStation 2 Spider-Man. There's the Peter Parker from Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. There's
Peter.
I like the
Park's
Indian
car.
one. Or the punk British guy was cool.
yeah. You've got
Was that guy
It's all-
played by Ziggy Marley? I saw his name in
No.
the credits and was like, "That's got to be Ziggy."
I will tell you.
Who knows?
I will
Okay.
tell you in moments. Okay,
Well,
so
okay,
first up, we've got Spider-Gwen, voiced by Haley Steinfeld. You may also know her best in the Coen Brothers remake of True Grit. She also played another Marvel character
Bumblebee.
in Kate. Yeah, and she was also in Bumblebee, correct? And she played Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye miniseries. In the comics, Gwen Stacy was Spider-Man's first-ish girlfriend, who would eventually be killed by Green Goblin. In Spider-Verse series, we are introduced to a version of Gwen Stacy who gets spider powers instead of Peter Parker. She had her own comics starting in 2015. In universe, she goes by Spider-Woman or Ghost Spider. So she's kind of become her own fan favorite. A lot of people like this character. She's kind of become her own character. Like it's kind of like an offshoot of an own fan base, and a lot of people seem to really like this character. And then next week. Yeah, and then there's like, for instance, there's like a cartoon that my kid watches that is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but it's like
I've seen that.
it's Miles Morales, Peter Parker, and Gwen Stacy all teamed up, and of course they're all Spider-Man, so they all kind of have their own spin on the different names. So Spider-Man, Spidey, Miles Morales is Spin, and then Gwen Stacy Spider-Man is Ghost Spider. So they kind of are all a little bit different from each other. Then we got next up Spider-Man 2099. Of course, this is voiced by Oscar Isaacs, who up until this point has now played 3 different Marvel characters, including Apocalypse in the X-Men movie. He plays Moon Knight in the MCU series, and now he's played Spider-Man 2099. AKA Miguel O'Hara was created in 1992 for a line of books that was different. It was a different Marvel characters taking place in a distant future, 2099. Other characters included Doctor Doom, the Punisher, and the Hulk. Spider-Man 2099 was probably the most popular of these. And this version was like lives in a dystopian future, which is kind of different from what we see in the movie, where it's like this like Star Trek-y future. It's more like in the comics, it's supposed to be more like a dystopian thing.
I thought
and
that
he's a
character
spider
was
vampire.
really cool. I hope we get more of him in the next one. We should have got more of him in this one, but
well, I think they're
actually
like setting
he was
it
in
up
the post-credit scene of the first one, so he
And
was kind of set up.
I think
Yeah,
they
and
needed
I
to
think-
set up the like what he does better.
Well,
and that's the thing. It was like my thought was it would almost make more sense if he was kind of jealous or something of Miles, but instead it's like, dude, your dad needs to die or the world's gonna end, and I'm like,
well,
what?
that's
and
because
they
his-
vaguely
yeah,
are like,
that's his
I tried
character
it.
is- yeah,
I tried
he
it,
tried to
and
do
the
it, and so
world
he
almost
believes
ended.
this-
Like,
yeah.
well, why didn't the world end when you did it, dude? Like, I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. Whereas the first one's like, we got to shut this machine off.
He was
We all
trying
need
to
work
seeing it
together,
as
but
he was seeing it as like the macro versus the micro, where in his mind he's like, well, because I screwed up somebody else's universe, it caused this cataclysmic event and it destroyed that entire universe. And so, as somebody who's like trying to save the
what
day,
was that?
I
What was
should have
that?
prevent
Like a
that
bomb
from
went
across,
off or
across
something?
everywhere.
Did a bomb go off, or did it just fall to pieces just randomly because it was out of design? Like it's like
That's
it
where
just-
we
that's
needed
what he was-
more
after a while, it
that's-
makes
backstory
that's what he's
for
going
him
through,
and what
yeah.
he's doing.
After a while, it doesn't make sense. After a while, it's just like this is all vague and nothing makes sense. Like everybody's dad needs to die or the world ends. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, they pretty much established like if it doesn't align with what is supposed to happen, then
666.
bad
My name
happens.
just
You're
keeps
like,
changing.
you are Charlie 666. Just a okay, and then all right, so I'm gonna run through a bunch of the other main Spider people real quick. So we got Isaiah Ray voices Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. She's an amalgamation of different Spider-Woman, including the Electric Company crossover. Electric Company was like this kids show in the late 60s, early 70s, kind of in line with like Sesame Street. But that was technically like the first Spider-Woman. This is a black woman who like got the Spider-Man suit and was like swinging around. And then, of course, Jessica Drew, which is the main Spider-Woman. And yeah, there was a pregnant Spider-Woman for some reason. I don't know. Marvel thought that was a great idea at the time.
What?
They did
What?
it
You don't think a pregnant woman could be a Spider-Man? That's
So,
the only reason
that was the
there.
thing.
So
That
so
was the thing.
I
Guys
don't
like
think
me
she
go.
should be riding a motorcycle.
Guys
pregnant.
like me go. That's she'd be home. I mean, pregnant women don't even fly in fucking airplanes when they're that pregnant. But no,
I have
they
no idea.
put shit in there just so they can pretend that I hate people or something. We're really
well, you already hate this movie.
why would
so
you
it's
do
no
that,
difference, really.
they put a lot of shit in there that for me to point out, people would be like, you just hate X, you just hate Y. I'm like, no, things are a little more
You just tend to
complicated
not
than
like-
fucking virtue
you tend to,
signaling,
like,
but
don't like
there's a lot of that in
multiverse
this
movies,
too.
we get
So
it. Okay,
know,
so then we got
I know.
returning, of course, we got Jake Johnson, who voices Peter B. Parker, who was kind of like the lazy schmuck version of Peter Parker in the last movie, but now he's got a kid now. And I believe
B.
it's called
Parker?
Peter B. Parker. I think that was the distinction they wanted to make versus the Peter Parker that was in the
like
first one.
Peter Parker was perfect. This guy was the
Yeah.
one that was like a little older, overweight, had broken up, got divorced.
He had
Mary
basically
Jane.
broken, and now he got back with Mary Jane. They had a kid who's basically a little redheaded spider kid who is doing all sorts of flips and shit. He reminds me of my own kid because my kid's a little redhead and does flips and shit. Marvel likes to make over the top choices to make headlines because of comic sales. Maybe that might be true.
They do.
Probably true. Then we got Daniel.
Today's big thing is let's lazily just like either gender swap or like race swap, And the only thing I care about is quality of story, of character, of acting, or whatever.
Yeah, and that's where I'm like, that's where I disagree with you, because some of these characters do have generally good stories,
But
like Miles Morales.
Forget
But
about
you're like,
Spider-Man for a second. The whole play, the reason for the cynicism, and I've said before, is because it's
Yeah.
it's not leading with the best actor. It's not thinking about character and actor primarily. It's thinking race first and then filling in on the back end. And that's where it's like for me, when I would cast stuff, I mean, I'd be working with people who were like, I simply don't cast white people because that's me doing my part. And I'm like, okay, first off,
Right.
that's fucking racist. Like, how can you be sitting there telling me you're progressive and you're saying racist shit to my fucking face? But then also it's like, don't you think the best actor, like I cast plenty of commercials.
you would
where I'd be
rather
like,
cast the best actor versus like,
yeah,
you want to
and
put
I
the best
always
actor first
did,
in
and it was
performance, and I get
always a
that.
mixed bag. It was always a mixed fucking bag, you know. But
Yeah.
other people would be like, well, no, we just can't allow white people because they're evil, you know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm so fucking cynical, because I went through that shit and saw how awful people can be. So, but I as long as it's I don't have a problem with a fucking soul in this
Like,
movie. Everybody was
No,
great.
I think all these characters are just kind of weird and like they all have their very distinct and they have their distinct issues, and like they all have their distinct characters, which I
But my
really
point,
like about
though,
this movie.
apart from this movie, typically the play is we're gonna do, like, somebody would be like, "Hey, look, I wrote this really creative commercial. It has like a gay person in it or something," and I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Well, the commercial isn't that creative." They're like, "Oh, you hate gay people." I'm like, "No, I'm saying your commercial isn't creative. It's not creative to just gender swap or race swap or something, but they've switched the standard now to where it's like, if you don't get on board with the swap, you're bad. If you don't like the movie, you know, you don't like Ghostbusters 2016, you just hate women or something. It's like, no, the movie sucks. I wanted the movie to be good, you know, so
Right.
that's all. Please continue.
Okay, so Daniel Kaluuya, who you probably remember from Get Out, he voices the character you were talking about, Ian, Spider-Punk. You may remember him. Yeah, I just said this. Yeah. So, but he also, another one, like there's so many people in this cast that were also in Marvel stuff, other Marvel, actual MCU stuff. And this is the clear distinction. I'll make this distinction in the next slide, or not the next one, the last slide. But like, Charlie, you keep hammering on about like Marvel keeps doing this. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Like, this Marvel is separated from the MCU Marvel, even though they
I get
are
that,
nearly
even though they do,
and
kind
that's the main point I want to make. Is
it.
it's like they refer to it, but like the main point is like they are connected, but they are not connected because of how like a lot of the legal reasons. And I can see where it's like you could make that argument. It's like, well, yeah, it's a trend that's going on, but I'm like, yeah, it's a trend that was like already pre-established in comics, and so it's like it makes sense why you would carry that over anyway to making a stories. But I feel like you kind of like don't like the idea of those stories. But let me get through this, and then we'll kind of talk more about like this,
because I get what you're saying, but I have words
because I'm just like, I know you're just like kind of very negative and cynical about the whole idea of multiverse stuff, but I do find like there is potential in those types of stories, and I do like that. But I do have like, part of me is like, I do have issues with this movie in that regard. Hold on, my computer's being weird real quick.
As I always say, I don't give a goddamn
monitors.
about the comics. I just watch the movie and then I speak from my heart and soul. But it's
your dark heart and soul.
I'll just keep talking until you fix your.
It's just
computer.
gonna be.
I can click forward here. I can click forward.
Okay. Well, no, I'm not even done. Wait, I'm not even done with that slide though. But
well, then keep going, bro.
Okay, so then we got Karen Sony voices, and I can't even say this name without like butchering it the hell out of it, because it's the Indian Spider-Man. That's what I'll say. The Indian Spider-Man.
It vaguely looked like Peter Parker, which is really funny.
But but you know, like Charlie, you and I talk about RRR all the time, and like that was all I was thinking about. It's like, oh yeah,
I thought he was cool.
You know, like
I liked
Hollywood.
I know it's not a yo-yo,
Spider-Man.
but
Yeah, that was
that
pretty
thing
cool.
But it's funny because earlier in the movie he'd said, "Why do people say ATM machine? That means automated teller machine,
or chai
machine."
tea."
And then he comes in with the same thing. He's like, "Why do you say chai tea?" You're saying TT. Yeah.
I'm surprised they never made they should have made the reference to DC Comics, because DC is Detective Comics, so it's Detective Comics comics.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I always thought was
They
I
could
always
have
thought
made a
was really
sick
funny.
burn on their competitor, man, if they would have put.
Well, they don't.
That's like
I don't
saying
think they
Detective
need
Comic
to.
Comics.
Yeah,
But
I don't think they need to make the. But fuck this goddamn.
that they would
my
be punching
stupid-
down.
No, my computer's just fucked, and I just hate it right now.
Well, what are you
so
trying to
it's pissing me
do?
off. My second monitor keeps going in and out, and it's annoying the shit out of me. And I'm like, why? It wasn't doing this for a while. Now it does it like every time we do this now. So it pisses
You
me
don't
off.
need
But
me
anyway,
to move the slide forward.
I got it.
Just
But thank
ask-
you. But anyway, the actor who plays the Indian Spider-Man, that actually is Karen Sony, and he was in
looks
Deadpool. He plays the
familiar.
taxi driver. He
Yeah.
plays the taxi driver in Deadpool, and both so again, another person who was in a bunch of other Marvel stuff. And then finally, out of this list, we have Andy Samberg voices the Scarlet Spider, who aka Ben Reilly. Now, in the 90s, there was this big event called the Clone Saga, where Spider-Man is cloned, and he's not sure if he's the real one or if he's not sure if he's the real one or not. So he becomes like this edgy version of himself. He changes his name to Ben Reilly, and he goes by the Scarlet Spider. And I think it's also funny because Samberg's voice seems to be imitating Nick Cage, who had voiced Spider Noir in the previous film and makes an appearance into this one. But of course, there's that's the picture that I pulled, was like when he was on SNL and he was doing his impression of Nick Cage. So I'm like, that has got to be the most meta thing to be like, oh yeah, you're gonna be in this movie. Okay, I'm gonna do my impression of Nick Cage.
This movie being meta? No way.
Right.
No way, man.
So then we've got Jason Schwartzman voices the Spot. Now the Spot has been a Spider-Man villain since '84, and he was even in an episode of the '90s cartoon. But usually this character is just played as a joke kind of character, and of course it kind of fits in with the overall tone of both of this movie and the last movie.
Wait. Finally,
wait.
The Spot was in the '90s cartoon, not Jason Schwartzman.
No.
Okay, just had to clarify. For a second, I was like, Jason Schwartzman was in the '90s cartoon.
No, but that would be cool if he was, right? But no, the character of the Spot was he was in the '90s cartoon. But yeah, he's always been that character's always been played as a joke.
Yeah.
Here we go. That's better. Okay. Fuck this computer, dude. Just F it to hell. Just F everything to hell. Okay, now I'm going to move to the last slide. Here we go. Okay, so now we have connections with the other universe, the other canon, of course. So with this film being a part of multiverse, there's a lot of references to other Spider media, but also the Marvel universe at large. First, we have Donald Glover. He makes a cameo in this film, which links it to the main MCU universe. Glover was a part of the inspiration for Miles Morales, because back in 2011, at the time, fans were petitioning to have Donald Glover play Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man. That was the 2012 one with Andrew Garfield. That was originally before they had cast Andrew Garfield. And at the time, he had done Community, and there was that episode where he was wearing like the Spider-Man shirt. So a bunch of fans wanted him to play Spider-Man. Of course, that didn't happen. But when we got 2017, we got Spider-Man Homecoming. He plays Aaron Davis, a.k.a. the Prowler, who's Uncle Aaron in these movies, before he gets his suit. So then and that character's sort of always been like a Batman, like a pseudo Batman, like villain / hero, like never kind of like an anti-hero type. But he's always been in the MCU. And then in this film, we see him in the flesh, but with his like Prowler costume. So I always thought that was kind of fun.
So he was the Prowler in this movie. He was like, he's sitting there.
He's sitting there. He was supposed to be the Prowler. Yeah, in the MCU movies, he's supposed to be the Prowler. It's just like they were setting that up, or they were making the hints that like, oh yeah, he could potentially be the Prowler.
Like, is that on the way?
Like, we don't know.
Okay,
it's a possibility. I mean, they're wanting to do Spider-Man 4. I think they're in production with it, so they are like the 4th Homecoming movie or whatever they're going to call it. But they potentially could do that.
Anybody out there who's unaware of his Derek comedy sketches,
I
mean, we watched the shit out of those in college.
I watched.
That was like,
dude, bro rape. Like, I don't even know. I think we're getting demonetized now, but dude, bro rape. That was the best shit ever.
Or spelling bee. Just go look up spelling bee.
I wanted to mention that, but
My God, it's the greatest thing ever. So
I heard what you
know,
said.
all those.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
watching him blow up has been phenomenal, and
Yeah.
it's cool that they put him in these different movies. There were 2 live action moments, right? Beyond when they brought in they showed Tobey Maguire briefly, they showed Andrew Garfield
They
briefly.
show. So yeah, that was another thing I mentioned is that
Did
they
they ever
show.
show what's his Tom
Holland?
Tom Holland? Did they
I
ever
think
do
they
that?
did. They may have
think
shown
they
it. I'm
did.
not.
I
There
don't
was so
think we
much
saw
going on
him.
in those.
But they showed
scenes.
Venom,
Yeah.
right? What you're getting to is
Yeah,
that
so they
cashier
show-
woman was
yeah.
Venom, right?
The Spot,
They
yeah, when
showed
the
Venom?
Spot travels to that, no, they don't show Venom, but when the Spot travels to the convenience store and the woman's just like, okay, whatever, this is just another Tuesday. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, you've seen weird shit before, and she's like, yeah, this is nothing new. And
Okay, I was
he's like,
wondering
"Oh,
what that
okay."
was because it seemed like
Yeah.
a joke, but
So
I
that
didn't
was-
make it through Venom, so
Yeah.
that would explain why I didn't.
He
know
was.
that.
that
She's
Venom
been in
1 or
both
2 or
Venom
both?
movies. I think
She
she's
was
in
in
both
both?
movies. I never saw the last one. I saw the first one, but yeah, I know
Okay.
she was in the first one for sure.
Okay.
So that was a reference to Venom, and then there's a brief direct reference to Spider-Man No Way Home, which is like one of the first multiverse Spider-Man movies, where he says Doctor Strange and those weird nerd kids, and he was talking about what happens in that movie where they bring in all of the other movie Spider-Mans into like the No Way Home universe.
Which, for the record,
So that was a reference
I
to that.
fucking love that movie.
That was great.
If we were reviewing that, I'd be Charles of Earth 69, no doubt. Said I'm 666 because, and it's not, again, I didn't hate this movie. I'm just critical of like how perfect the first one was, and this one is like who just said? I think Nico just said it. He said I absolutely love this movie. I didn't walk out absolutely loving it. I'm like, I appreciate the art and I liked it because Spider-Man is my shit. But
You gotta
know,
appreciate the art. It's so
yeah.
impressive.
But that it's no different than when it's like we'll be getting to Skyfall soon, and it's like Skyfall. So it's the cinematography still. Yeah. You're not gonna sway me on cinematography alone. I appreciate that shit, but that is a cherry on top. But you gotta give me some story, otherwise I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, I disagree with you.
I-
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, I disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, and then of course
You'll
also
never
see
say
images
why,
from
but,
multiple. No, I do, but you just go "Ah!" like for 5 minutes, and you're like, no.
Yeah, Kever's right. Across the Universe is the best Spider-Man to come out this year.
so far.
Yeah,
So
but if the first one came out, or if No Way Home came out, no, not No Way Home. Wait, yeah, No Way Home came
Yeah, No
out.
Way Home.
I'd be goo goo gaga about it. So
Goo goo gaga. Okay, so then I said we saved multiple images from both other Spider-Man movies and cartoons. I should note that Spider-Man is owned by Sony. So even if the Spider-Man movies are MCU films, they are still Sony films first. They just borrow MCU characters.
remember they
So,
traded Bond.
Yeah. But they basically, so every time they do a new Spider-Man movie, it's still a Sony production movie. That's why when you go to Disney Plus for the longest time, you couldn't watch any of the Spider-Man MCU movies because they were still owned by Sony. Now they've made some kind of deal where they put them all on Disney Plus. I don't know what the deal is, but basically all those MCU Spider-Man movies are Sony films that they're like, oh, well, we'll trade you. We'll get to borrow Doctor Strange. We'll get to borrow Iron Man and Nick Fury, and they'll connect to the MCU. But they're going to be its own separate thing. And then you can borrow Spider-Man when you do your Avengers movies. And so that's kind of how they've gotten around a lot of this stuff. So even in this movie, it's all still Sony. It's all still under the Sony banner. So they own all of that stuff.
The lesson
then finally,
is become an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah. So
do that, kids.
That's how they do that. And then
you'll
finally,
make
they
money.
have the Lego. We have the Lego Spider-Man is a reference to the writers Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who wrote and directed the Lego movie, and they also produced Charlie's favorite movie of 2023, Cocaine Bear.
They produced that?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Lord and Miller produced
We
Cocaine
talked
Bear?
about it.
They didn't
produced
write it,
Cocaine
though.
Bear.
They didn't write it.
No.
Had they
didn't write it.
written and directed it, it would have been a good movie.
It would have been a better movie.
It would have been. I'm sure it would have been. It would have been exactly like the point I made that night. We covered Cocaine Bear. Is like you hear Cocaine Bear and you see that poster and you go, oh, this is going to be awesome. You see it in your head. They would have made the movie that you see in your head. That is funny and enjoyable. But instead, it was a giant piece of shit. Anyway, go ahead, Nance.
Oh,
yeah,
who,
Nance,
me?
what did you think of this movie?
I enjoyed it, but I mean, for mostly just because of the eye candy. It's so cool looking, but again, it would have helped knowing it was a part one, first of all, and then like in terms of how good or bad I thought the movie was, it's not as good as the first one, though I don't. even
You just
remember the
hate
first one that
anything
much.
new. How dare you? The art
No, it's
style's
like-
so good. It's
like-
beautiful. How
like
could
we
you
were
possibly
touching on
say anything
before,
bad
it's
about
like,
this movie, you monster?
It's like I want because really the first good portion of the movie is like Miles and Gwen, and then it turns into this whole Miguel and the Spider-Verse
The
and
TVA.
all the other stuff, and it's like I want to know more about the Spider-Verse and keeping all the timelines correct.
I felt like
or
you got
whatever.
enough of that. Like I understood all of it. I was like, oh, okay, I
I
get
think
it.
we should have
explain it.
I just
started
thought
with
you
that
guys were so
stuff.
Explain it
confused.
then.
I was
Maybe
like,
build
If
some
you
of the
understand
Gwen
it, then
drama
explain it
in,
then.
But
what like understand?
If you
like, explain
understand
why
it,
they're
then
at-
please explain it to me.
Okay, so what I think the movie is doing, right, is that they're saying that everybody's timeline or everybody's the different Spider-Men, right? They work in these different universes. And so each universe, much like a story that you write, is supposed to stay true to whatever canon that is developed for that universe. So like the general canon for a lot of Spider-Man stuff is
Sorry, real quick,
Spider-Man
though.
gets the
Canon.
Spider-Man
like the
powers.
canon
Is
event.
canon like a self-aware reference, right? Because we would know
I
canon.
felt like
as
it was, but
the
no, yeah.
canon
Because a
is
more
like
appropriate
the
name would be like
pre-written- the things
super
that are known to
pivotal
be a part
moment
of
in a Peter Parker life.
the things
Right,
to be
right.
known to be a part of a story. That's
Yes.
canon. So for them
So
to be
they're
like
saying-
this is or is not canon, was that
That's
more
why-
of a
yeah, that's-
self-aware thing?
I feel like it was, and here's the thing: I do think this movie, like I did. Okay, this was a note that I did write. I think the Spider-Verse movie is a film. I said the Spider-Verse movie is a film that only works because of on a meta level. We all know who and what Spider-Man is in our own zeitgeist. Your mom's or like your mom's heard great power equals great responsibility.
Like I said,
etc.
should never be anybody's
and that
first
was
Spider-Man
something-
movie. Don't
No,
let
no.
this,
And I
don't
agree, and
ever
that's
let
something
this
I
be the
will
first
agree
one.
with. I do feel like,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. I do feel like I agree with that because I do feel like this movie, and that's also how I feel about some of the other MCU movies, is like they only work because they exist within the framework of you've already
Yes.
seen all these other things. And if you're a Spider-Man fan and you understand who Spider-Man is as a character, you're going to really like this movie and understand like, oh, that's very Spider-Man. Like everything.
That's how
there were
I
so many
described the
parts-
first movie. I say
I
exactly
felt like that's
that
how
about
this
the
was
first
in this movie. But so okay, so you were asking about how I felt like it works, right? So yeah, I felt like it was a meta type thing where they're in their heads, they're like, okay, every Spider-Man universe has to follow a certain set of guidelines, a certain story, if you will, right? Like there's certain pivotal moments that have happened in
Like,
almost
to
every
be the
iteration
life
of
of
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, it needs to have
Right?
these key
So like
moments.
Spider-Man always gets his powers. Spider-Man always, like even in when we talked about No Way Home, like, or we didn't talk about it, but like if you've seen No Way Home, even in that movie, they're like, yeah, I had an Uncle Ben. I had that moment where, my Uncle Ben died. Like, yeah, we all had an Uncle Ben. We all had that moment of somebody telling us like, yeah, great
With
power
great
equals
power
great
comes
with
great-
great comes great
What
responsibility.
what
everybody
what
has
does his uncle say again? His uncle's like, just keep going.
yeah.
Which isn't exactly as fucking awesome as with great power comes great responsibility, but whatever,
I think
Yeah.
but I do feel like, yeah. So I do feel like this movie is very meta in that sense, and I feel like that's where your disconnect is because you're like you want hard. Like I know Charlie, every time your points on movies, you want something hard. You want hard facts of like within universe stuff versus like what is
Charlie
this?
wants
What like if
clear
I'm looking at
rules.
everything, what is this trying? What is the movie trying to say?
A
And I feel like
balance of
that's
emotion and logic. A balance
yeah,
of those
but
two
you
things.
want like within universe where I feel like this movie plays with the medium because it's obviously as you're watching it, you're like, okay, this is an animated film, and we already know that we're watching an animated story, and we're basing it off of animated like the comic books that they're already their own universe and they have their own tales and their own like really long sagas of all these different stories that have built up over time. And we see it as we're watching the movie because we see all these different iterations of Spider-Man. So when Miguel's saying, oh, he's breaking the canon, it's like, oh, well, you're breaking this story that is supposed to be told. It's supposed to be told this way. So for me, when you're talking about emotional and all this stuff, I'm like, to me, it's like that is just a piece of the fabric of what the story is trying to say. So I don't disengage with that. I'm like,
Do you remember
okay,
Wanted,
so
though?
all I need to know is like, what is the goal of the characters and what are they trying to do? But I don't need to know like the specific, like, I don't understand how this works. Like, I don't need to know. You don't need to know that. What you need to know is that Miguel has had like his, with his experiences, he had an issue similar to what Kingpin did, where he lost his family and he was trying to gain his family back. And so
Yeah.
he was sad. He was trying to gain his family back, and he did that. He went to another universe where there was a family that he could like pop in. But what he found was that by doing so,
Yeah,
by
like
breaking
butterfly
the fabric,
affected shit.
yeah, there was a butterfly effect, and it broke
Sure.
the fabric of that universe. And he realized, he's like, I need to put a stop to that. So that's his character's motivation is already established. So I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I get where he's coming from, but I don't need to know like, well, how did it do it? Because you're describing it as like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it doesn't. That's where I'm like, that's where I get to the point where I'm like, I don't need to know that, because I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I understand that. Like, all I need to know is that if a character breaks this event that is supposed to happen, then he breaks the fabric of the story. And so then it already sets up all of these other pieces where they're like, oh, wait, well, he's like, I need to get back to my universe because my uncle's going to die. And there's like this premonition that's going to happen. Or yeah, not his uncle, sorry, his dad.
But
this
where it
premonition
doesn't
and he
make
realized
sense,
because
though,
he's-
is it's like, oh, this person used a machine to get into another universe, and that
but yeah,
up.
but
It's
that's
like,
where I'm like, I
but
feel
you're
like
implying then that them doing that wasn't already like it's
Right.
ignoring
So-
the idea of free will.
No, I
It's
know, but that's
completely
what-
ignoring
that's
free
what-
will, and it's like all of this.
That's
okay,
where I was saying. Hold on.
Did you see the
So
movie
wait,
Wanted?
I do have a point. Though. Hold on.
Okay, and then I want to talk about Wanted.
All right. So, and it
I want to
probably
talk
does
about the
fall
Mighty
within
Duck
love.
movies.
I'm gonna take a piss when I get back. We're gonna talk about Wanted. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want, Nance to filibuster about talking about all the Mighty Ducks movies while we're talking about something else. It has nothing to do with the actual argument.
We should
Okay, so
totally,
no.
we should rank the Mighty
What
Ducks movies
We
just
should.
to piss everybody off. What's the
should.
next
Just
series?
the next
We're gonna do the
Mighty
Mighty Duck
Ducks,
movies.
the Mighty Ducks movies. And it's an order that may surprise you. Like that'll be the tagline.
Yeah. I'm like, the
All right,
original,
anyways, but-
you cannot beat the original. Fuck you.
Fuck you. D2's the best one ever. I stand by that.
There's so much meaning. Dude, there is so much meaning in the first one. Like,
Okay, but Charlie, I think you and I will agree with this, but this is something where I'm like, I do have issues with the story, because I do feel like they're trying to tell two different stories. Like, okay, I get it that like there are two different characters, right? And we're trying to tell different stories. But as far as a theme or what is all connected, I felt like I was wondering, like, are these stories connected? Because, okay, so this is what I wrote. I said the story has themes of parenting and destiny. I do wonder if these themes are at odds with each other, because on one hand, you have destiny versus free will, which is a story we've seen multiple times with The Matrix. You're going to say Wanted.
I
right?
like shit like that. I like shit
like
like
it's
that.
destined, because that's what I felt like this story was
great
doing. Is the theme is that Miguel is trying to represent, it's like, you cannot break your destiny. You cannot disrupt what is destined to already happen. And if you do that, you're going to break the fabric of the universe. That's what this movie
Real
said.
quick.
But on the other hand,
real quick.
on the other hand,
get this
but
out.
wait,
In
wait,
Wanted,
I'm
they
not
had
ready
McCurdy go.
balloons.
Let McCurdy go.
I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm
Okay.
not finished. I'm not finished.
Reminds me of me tonight.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
McCurdy rants tonight.
McCurdy rants. So then he says, okay, so there's destiny versus free will, and you see in other stories. But on the other hand, this is where I feel like there's two different themes, and they're playing against each other. Is parents knowing best versus letting your children figure out, or figuring it out the hard way, or leading the nest of
2023 has
sorts,
been all
which
about
is
parenting and
basically-
family.
Exactly. So we were talking about, and that's what I said. I said, is this in line with themes was talking about with Beau Is Afraid? Because we did talk about that. It was how Beau Is Afraid is dealing with the theme of like parents know best versus letting your child know the hard way, or basically not coddling your
Megan.
children.
Beau Is
But that was-
Afraid was
that was
about
in Beau Is Afraid
overbearing
as well.
mothers. No, Beau
Yes,
Is Afraid was
but
specifically about overbearing mothers.
It is specifically about, but in the grand scheme of things, like that story is also talking about like, if you're basically being a helicopter parent versus not being a helicopter parent. And that's where I was like, are these things like, does the idea of destiny and free will and, being a helicopter parent or letting your kids know the hard way, are these things that like, do they work together? And like, that's where I may had more issues with, because I was like, I feel like they were telling two drastically different stories at different times. And maybe that's why you guys were like, I liked when they were talking about the parenting stuff, because like I was getting into the characters Miguel
Spider-Man
and Gwen
2.
and how they're, or not Miguel, but like, yeah. And that's where
That
they
was
were
all
like,
Spider-Man 2.
yeah. And it
All
felt
of that.
very Spider, and that's always been a Spider-Man story. That's
Yes.
not even specifically to just Spider-Man 2, the movie, but
Yeah.
like, that was one story. But then, of course, when we get to the multiverse, you're talking about destiny, you're talking about free will, and like the story ends up being like, we're going on that trajectory of like, okay, does Miles, is he suggesting that no, this is bullshit? Like this thing that you fabricated of like, we have to follow this canon is bullshit because I am the anomaly. I got my powers from another universe. It wasn't from this universe. And that would, if that's the case, it's kind of like, so you love Star Trek. Like you and I, we talk about Star Trek all the time.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, one of at least a standout episode to me is when they go to the Trill homeworld in DS9. And they talk about, no, was that DS9 or was that in TNG? Doesn't matter. But in that episode, there's this lie that is put forth where they're saying that you, like, a Trill has to have a host.
Wait,
like,
put your
this is
glasses
just a
back on
thing.
real quick.
Hold
Put
on.
your glasses back
I
on.
need to have my glasses back on. All right. I need to cut the Skrillex thing. I hate this haircut, by the way. I really do hate this haircut. I hate this haircut. So anyway, in that episode, there's a lie that is put forth within the society that, like, if you have to be a Trill to support the Trill symbiote, right? You have to be of this race to support it. But what they don't know, or like they say that like only a small amount of people can do this. Like only a small amount of people, and those are the chosen ones. But then what you find out at the end of the episode is like, that is a lie. That is not true. So that's where I felt like this story was trying to play into that. Where and again, I will say this. I think my issue might be is that maybe the parenting story and the Destiny free will story aren't quite at, like, they feel like they're at odds at times. Like they're not, like you're trying to tell two different things and trying to pack it into this one movie. And maybe that's like really the biggest issue with the movie. Not so much like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, I don't need to understand the science behind it. All I need to know is like, that's the character's motivation. That is what they're pulled for. Like, that is why they're doing these things. Like, that to me is like, that's enough for me to be like, okay, I get it. It's like, that's fine. Like, you're trying to say the stories have to stay congruent.
And
That's
I'm
fine.
more in line
agree.
with that too, but I just want that storyline started earlier in the movie. I want
Sure.
more of it, and I care
But it
less
does-
about the Gwen thing. Or you can have them
Yeah.
both at the same time. You don't need to have like half the movie be Gwen and Miles, and then the more interesting stuff start later.
I think this movie feels like, we're talking about the length of this movie, and I do feel like even in the edits of certain scenes, I felt like things felt longer than they may have needed to be, and I do feel like this, like that setup of like
The pre-title
Gwen's
sequence,
story-
it was like, I guess, like,
yeah, I was like, oh, I guess
Whoa.
we're watching this. It was kind of like, what was it? What was that movie that came out a couple of years ago? It was like last year, the year before that was Drive My Car. I don't know if you guys probably never saw it. It's a Japanese movie. It's a Japanese movie, Nans. You should watch it. You should watch it. It's your own heritage. You should watch that movie. It was a good movie though. But
Just watch half of it though.
Half of
anyway, Charlie,
Just
you
watch
had
that. Anyway, in that movie, the movie is like the beginning sequence is like this almost hour-long thing, and that's just the pre-title sequence. And then you get into the actual movie, and I'm like, okay,
Jeez.
like to spend an hour watching it, doing a pre-title. But I do feel like that was the thing where I was like, man, this movie wants to savor like every little moment. They don't want to cut
Yeah,
anything.
we took
out.
all
They're
this
just
time
like,
to animate all this stuff.
This is like, we're not cutting anything. You're like, all right.
Well,
guess
all
from
the
here-
scenes with Gwen were super abstract, and I was like, "Is the whole movie going to be like this?" They went at times. It
Her
felt
universe
like
is just that way or something.
it felt like Waking Life or something, or
It's-
Scanner Darkly, where it was like
There's so much
we're
color
animating
with
this
her and her dad.
about feeling. Like she literally she walks in,
like
she's
that
literally
stuff, though.
blue. No, I liked it, but I was like,
Yeah,
is
it
the
was
whole
cool.
movie going to be this abstract?
is-
But it was only her
so-
scenes with him.
That's actually from the, again, hold on, let me do this correctly.
Everything, yes, everything looks like
That was
they
from the
took
comics.
it directly out of the comics.
It's directly from the comics.
All of it, including the first movie. It's
But
that's what's brilliant about it, including putting like the text boxes with like like as he's running down the street and you have text boxes going behind him, like all that stuff. In my view, the first movie could possibly be the best comic book movie ever made. Live action, like go ahead and submit your favorite live action, but
I think
taking
James
a
Gunn
comic
even
book,
said that.
taking a comic book movie and bringing it to the screen, the first one is probably the top of the list. Like, good work there. And then you could be like, okay, whatever live action is your favorite comic book, graphic novel, movie, whatever, Dark Knight, Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be.
Right.
But enter the Spider-Verse, into the Spider-Verse, got to be at the top of the list because it perfectly uses. Well, and something that I really appreciated about it is, have you guys ever seen any of those? Like there was something done, I guess specifically with Star Wars, right? So the entire original Star Wars movie,
Spider-Man or Star Wars Visions.
I don't know, but what it was, what there was like a thing done, kind of like a filmmaking experiment where they enlisted the help of the entire internet, where it was, we're going to remake all of Star Wars: A New Hope, what we now know as A New Hope, shot by shot, and everybody is going to sign on to recreate a single shot. So every shot of the movie was divvied up, and different people
you
would
get a
claim
frame
them.
or like a
shot, no, a full
section.
shot, whatever that shot was. So just pick a shot,
similar with
and
RoboCop.
people would recreate it with whatever they had lying around their house, or with claymation, or whatever it was. So when you watch the whole movie, it was, all those shots were edited together. So you're watching the whole movie, but it's like you're going from claymation to suddenly somebody drew it with pencils to somebody had their little kids recreate it. Well, it's like the quality's all over the place. And I was kind of reminded of that watching these two movies where the animation styles switch up, where some things look so photo real that you're like, whoa, did they go and like shoot that as a plate? But no, it's still all animation. And then it'll suddenly be super 2D. And then it'll whatever. It's like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is like scale things. We're breaking out every possible way of doing scale things and all movie magic. Lord of the Rings does it all. This is like every style of animation we're gonna throw into this one flick. And that's the thing. Like the first movie had the incredible animation and a story that was easily followed and was, the advantage is always going to be an origin story. And that's the trouble, is that you have an origin story. And that's why I've been harping on all these sequels we've covered this year, is like you kind of have to escalate. That you don't have to escalate, but it certainly helps in your sequel to escalate. I said at one point that, like, as a rule, I think I misspoke. You don't have to, but it's like what John Wick. John Wick does. John Wick perfectly. Yeah, escalates all four movies and then ends like well done. To your point, though, McCurdy, where I'm at is, it's not like yes, I do want rules, because rules give you limitations, and those limitations allow for general creativity and storytelling versus just like a bunch of random shit happening. But I just want to define. Speaking of Star Trek, there was a moment I've been watching Voyager, and there's a particular moment where what they have on Star Trek is a holodeck, and they can do whatever they want on there. The holodeck, you can like, where's your glasses? You can, give me your glasses. Superimpose them on my face. You can do anything on the holodeck, just like a virtual reality program, and they Tuvok, who's like one of the biggest badasses ever, he's working on a holo novel where he's arguing with somebody else about how to end it, and this other guy is like, it's Paris is like, it's all about emotion, man. And he's like, well, actually, storytelling must follow logic. And I was like, my dude, the moment I heard that, I was like, God, yeah, Tuvok, my man. Because we've talked about this before. You can't just do random crap. There has to be some logic to it. So what I was getting at with Wanted, I wrote one little fucking note down. Loom. The goddamn loom in Wanted was their mechanism for fate, right? It was like the loom of fate or whatever. And it was like, this loom dictates, however I can't remember how they said that it came about, but it was like this loom knots. It was like there were like little knots, and then the knots. Like there was some, but again, like I'm like that would
they
weave
did that
it
in this movie.
Was there though? Was there like?
Yes, they did that in this movie. That's why I'm like, where are you? Like, are you? Did you watch the same movie?
But it was like I remember them showing like a little computer simulation of like here's
they
the
show
Spider-Verse.
they're basically like they start off and they say here is the multiverse because again like it does play into the thing that you seem to just kind of have an issue. And to be fair, I do understand your issue with. Because you do a multiverse, because this is why if you've ever watched Rick and Morty, this is why the character of Rick is a nihilistic prick, because he doesn't give a shit. Because he's like, there's infinite universes with me. I could just,
and for the record, I fucking love
something
Rick
happens
and
in this one, I'll just jump into another one because there's
Yeah.
so many versions. If something happens in this one,
So what does
I
anything
can just
matter?
jump into another one that's exactly
What
like
does
the
anything
last
matter?
one.
You know, that's
And
this
there's
whole
an
thing.
entire, but yeah, that is
Mans,
the
you're still
whole,
muted.
He's contemplating his video essay on Mighty Ducks. Okay, but
I'm
no,
writing
like,
it
but
right
you
now.
said that, and I'm like, but that was in this movie. It's like
what
they do
was
set
their-
the rules,
what-
and they're like, they say, okay, so they say this is the multiverse, and then because
But did
it's
they?
Spider-Man,
They didn't have
because
a loom.
it's Spider-Man.
Did they have a
because
loom?
they do. They have. They're like, this is the web of the Spider-Verse. And like that was their loom. They were like, because we have this multiverse. And then they
but that doesn't answer the question. What was it?
Neither
What was
does
it?
the
Was it a
loom answer
computer
anything.
simulation? What was it?
What do you think the loom answered anything? It was like, okay, we have this loom that's just been going on, and that's how we decide.
No, but
fate.
the
Again,
loom gave
the
names of
loom
people that had to
decides-
die. This
Yeah,
was
because
this was
it
just
decides
just because
fate.
they had a
And that's why it
projection that
doesn't make
showed a
sense.
bunch of
And it's the
webs
same way-
interconnecting doesn't mean they have some kind of mechanism for what the
Neither does
ultimate
loom.
shape of reality should
Neither
be.
does loom. Yeah, neither does one end with the loom because the
No,
again,
no,
with
it
one end
does.
and
The
no,
loom
how?
actually gives
How?
you something tangible. The loom gives you names. They just had a projection on in like on a room that was
But
like,
why do you need to
here's
know?
a bunch
Like,
of
that's why
interconnected stuff.
That's why I get back to.
It's
I'm
the
like,
same
why
thing.
do you need
Dude,
to
okay.
know?
This is
Why
what I'm
do
getting
you
at.
need
This
to
is what
know
I'm
that?
getting at. So you have a spider in the first movie. You have a spider that would have
Right.
bit a Peter Parker of a different universe, and that spider gets jumps
Goes to
over
another
to
universe. Yeah.
Miles's universe and bites him, and then it's like
Right.
that should never have happened. Well, how the fuck do you know that, dude? Because it did happen. So what do you mean it couldn't have happened? It shouldn't have happened because it did happen because a guy
Right.
did something with a machine
Right.
that
But
caused that.
again.
Who the
but,
fuck
okay,
are you
but
to
Charlie,
be like that
Charlie,
should never have happened?
Exactly. But okay.
Well, that's why we need
you're-
more info on the spot.
But that's again. I think they're
ultimate
saying that
henchman.
Well,
Well,
and that was his thing. He was like,
But
Spot
hold
never
on.
would have been
Give
created
me
if
less
not for you.
Gwen,
And
give me
it's
more
like,
spot.
Right,
There
right,
you
right.
go.
But-
none of this
but
makes
Charlie,
sense.
Right, you're saying that, but you're like, okay, but Miguel's Spider-Man 2099, like that's his old motivation. Is like I have like everything has to stay the same, right? You're just like because he has his own weird framework of like this is the Spider-Verse. This is how everything is all connected. We all have the similarities. This is why we are in the Spider-Verse. Because like for instance, going back to Rick and Morty example, there is I think towards like the season
They're like-
5 or whatever, they make this point. They make a point. Hold on, let me put my nerd glasses on. They make this point. Fucking Skrillex hair right there. There we go.
You better
Little-
hurry up because I
little
want to
Skrillex.
talk about Uncle.
They make this point
Aaron.
in that they make that point in Rick and Morty, and this is again why I like multiverse stuff. They're like, yeah, Rick's a narcissist though, so Rick is only like talking about the Rick universes versus in this thing, we're only talking about the Spider universes because even if you have a vast
For the record, I
multiverse,
fucking love
it's-
Rick and Morty. I
know.
love Rick and Morty. But when you
Right.
apply it to something
So
like
then- but then-
Spider-Man, everything
okay,
becomes
so-
nihilistic.
but yeah, I'm
Rick and Morty
asking
is
you-
great because it's nihilistic.
I'm
but
asking you though.
my
of what I'm
precious
saying is, like,
Spider-Man
you
is
are
suddenly
saying
fucking
that, and you're like,
nihilistic.
I know, but you're saying that, and you obviously know that Miguel is the one behind it, and he's convinced all these people. It's like, no, we need to do this thing. We need to like make sure the canon it stays the same. And then of course we have our protagonist here, who's Miles, and he's like, and then he's being told, oh, you're an anomaly, you're a nobody, you shouldn't
Dude.
even exist. And he's like, what the and exactly your point is like, well, who are you to tell me that I shouldn't exist? And that's like the driving force of the story.
If part 2 is him going back and destroying that whole operation, that would be great. But I would have appreciated if this whole movie had nothing to do with I'm lying to my parents and Gwen being like I'm lying to my dad and all that crap. Instead, if they're going to do
and
this
again, I
multiverse
don't know
stuff,
why.
if you're gonna do this multiverse
that
stuff,
stuff,
just
but okay.
have it be like he goes to see them and he's all excited
Mhm.
to join this Spider-Man team. but
Right.
it's kind of weird. It's kind of off a little bit, and then he realizes that Miguel is maybe kind of like a little more corrupt or a little more sinister than everybody thought. And yeah, that happens, but it should have been about him then bringing that system down and kind of being like, you know what, fuck you. And that's all there, but it's all watered down by all this crap with his parents and with Gwen's dad and all that. It's like, this is one of those rare instances where I'm like, pick a lane. Pick a lane. Do one or the other. And I would have preferred
what you're talking about goes back to what I'm talking about.
At first, he's working for the spider police, and everything's all good. But eventually, there's like that twist where it's like, no, actually, you're an anomaly too, and we need to get rid of you. And he's like, you know what? Fuck all that. Like this is all. I'm bringing all of you down too. And then they, like if he would have just ended up destroying the whole thing, but no. It was all watered down with the parent stuff, and then it ended up being a part 1. And we'll see in part 2. Maybe I will eat all these words when part 2 comes out and they fulfill all this stuff. But as of right now, I'm just like,
it sounds like that. It sounds like you and I agree at least on the fact that it does feel like there were two different storylines that were going like one direction.
Not like the movie, not like you dislike the movie, and not that you love the movie. You're just like,
even during, I'm like,
I didn't hate this movie.
Like,
Give me
like as I'm watching it, I'm like, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? Versus the first one, I'm so engaged the whole time, and I'm laughing my ass off, and then this big boy's crying tears, super manly tears. But it's that first one is like untouchable, and then this one, like here's what I think kind of would have helped in what I'm saying is like you have a bad guy who can actually
Sorry, I'm laughing at your
go
name.
wherever he wants. Nans is just having a good time with my nameplate. You have a bad guy who can go. Let me backtrack. The first movie ends with the first movie was just like, here's a machine that allows us to traverse the multiverse. Okay, cool. Machine gets destroyed because it has to be destroyed. Then it turns out that none of that mattered because like apparently the spider police can do it as much as they want. Oh, that whole thing about your like phase shifting doesn't matter. We give you a wristband and it's all good. Like problem solved. Okay, fuck it. But you have a bad guy though who has the ability to go to whatever universe he wants. So and that is a direct consequence of the first film. That's how sequels work. It's like, remember that thing that happened in the first movie? Well, now there's a consequence for it. The good guy thought he was getting away scot-free. No, there was a consequence. I love me a sequel that does that. So Spot should have been like the main baddie of this. And he vaguely was, but not really. So Spot could have been the mechanism for how the gang gets back together, right? Like he like pulls Peter into another universe, and then that's how maybe he gets back with Gwen or whatever. But instead, it's just like Gwen can go wherever she wants, whenever she wants. Pregnant black Spider Woman can go wherever she wants, whenever she wants. But my point being that Spot could have been the mechanism for why the sequel is happening. Because otherwise there aren't any limitations when it's just like, oh no, there's a whole spider police thing that's like the TVA and they go everywhere and they do whatever they want. But it just like the devices they had make the first movie, it makes the first movie irrelevant, at a certain point, as opposed to building on the first one. So, and what's kind of ironic though, is that when the first movie came out, people ask me what I thought about it. And I'd be like, I think it's near perfect. I think my only gripe with it is I needed some context of where the fucking spider came from. And that's what's funny is this movie answered that.
This movie does that.
Spot's
but I'm excited.
I brought that spider to you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
I am excited to see. I'm excited to see, because the spoilers, I am excited to see where the next one starts off, because I do like that idea of like an alternate, being very specific. Like, again, like these movies, at least the multiverse thing. And this is why I thought this is, as far as the multiverse movies I've seen, maybe one of my favorites, or one of the better ones, because I do like how, unlike live action, they can really demonstrate a vast difference in between different universes, more so than they could in the Spider-Man No Way Home. But I do love like we were talking about how like vast the multiverse can be, and what can be confusing is you're just jumping. It's more just being a tour guide. You're jumping through all these different universes. You're kind of getting this little glimpse of what everyone looks like. Like, okay, this is the Spider-Punk universe. It looks like a Sex Pistols album cover. And then this is the Indian universe where it's like everything in New York is like India. And then this is the, like you're just jumping back and forth between all these different universes and seeing all this stuff. What I'm excited more about is that we're going to get this story in the next one of seeing like this alternate version of what Miles' life could have been had he not been he had not gotten to become Spider-Man. And it's almost like this flip thing where now it's like, oh no, you're not Spider-Man now, you're the Prowler.
He's
and
a bad
like
guy,
you're not a good guy, you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
And like I want to see that. Like that's the thing I'm like I like that they introduced that. I like that to me as more of a specific narrowed story versus like I think that with this it's just like holy crap, there's all these Spider-Men.
There's
And
so
I
many
thought,
different
like,
things.
I do think all of that stuff's fun because if you're a Spider-Man fan and you've watched multiple different cartoons over the years and television shows and read the comics, you're like, oh wait, that's from this video game, or that character's from this version of Spider-Man, or that's from this thing. Like I loved all of that, and I mean, again, I loved all of.
Like, I'm not gonna contend with that. Like I again, right. I'm sitting here saying I like my version of heaven. My version of heaven is I die and I come back as motherfucking Spider-Man.
Char, have you
all
played
I've ever wanted to be in my life
Spider-Man
is fucking
games?
Spider-Man.
They're supposed to be pretty good. Spider-Man games?
I played
they're on
PlayStation
back
in the day,
right?
Yeah, I played them back in the day, like on GameCube.
Well, he's talking about
there's pretty new ones.
He's talking about the new ones on PlayStation. Like there's 2 new ones on PlayStation.
But even like again, the whole mechanism of like the whole big, like if they would have, if it would have been he starts to work for the Spider Police and he's all excited about it, and then they have him do something that he's uncomfortable with. Or they eventually are like, turns out you're also an anomaly and we have to destroy you. That would have made more sense than your dad has to die, because he already like remember, it's not Father Ben, it's Uncle Ben. And we had that. It's Aaron Davis, right? That's his uncle's name.
Okay.
Right? His uncle, hang on. His uncle fucking died in the first one. So he had the whole death of a father figure thing. And so, but then it's like, well, no, now your dad has to die too.
It has to be a father figure that works in law enforcement.
That's so fucking stupid. That doesn't take into account at all that different variants have different stories. Like maybe Aunt May died for some people or whatever, but it's like, no, your fucking dad. We gotta kill your fucking dad too. Yeah, bro, we gotta kill your fucking dad, or the whole world's gonna end. It's like, this is stupid. This is fucking stupid.
Calm down, Spider Ants. That's your name. Put Spider Ants down. That's the one. Spider Ants. No, what I'm saying though is, again, we were talking about the whole canon, right, of Spider-Man. Yeah. There are multiple different deaths that Spider-Man deals with throughout the Spider-Man story. It's not just the Uncle Ben story.
I don't give a fuck.
He learns lessons from each of those. And like, again, Gwen Stacy's death is one of those stories where he's trying to get close to somebody, and then he realizes that getting close to somebody is hard for him, because if he does that, he knows that his adversaries are after him. And that's something that, like, I feel like we never, especially in the new MCU, like, we don't really grasp a lot of those stories. And that was something I felt like is missing in superhero stories in general, because a lot of times superhero stories in the past were always like, why do you wear a mask? Because if someone found out who my kids were, who my wife was, who, my grandpa was, any of that stuff, they would be, and they were my adversary, they're the villain or whatever, they would come after them and they would kill them. And I would, of course, that's how they would get to me. And that's what happens in Spider-Man in like the early stories, where Green Goblin follows him home and figures out that, Chucky Rance has a huge arachnid penis.
I did like that Matrix Spider.
That's what I was
line weaving thing.
But that's what I was saying with this, is that like you're focusing on the Uncle Ben one. I'm like, yeah, the Uncle Ben thing does happen, but there are other deaths that Spider-Man deals with, and that's why they're linking this specifically to Gwen Stacy's dad dying, because that does happen in the comics where he dies, and now there's like Gwen Stacy's dad makes that promise.
Dad,
and
you're gonna quit. It's okay.
Yeah.
I guess you're not gonna die because you're not a captain anymore.
Yeah, we're done.
So it's just
wait,
like
back
Miles,
up,
go
back up.
home and just make your dad, like, force him to retire. Problem solved.
Right.
Rob
Because
a
he's not in
bank,
law
give him the
enforcement
money.
anymore. He
Right.
doesn't have to die. It's just like, this is stupid.
Well, okay, so there
It's
was
fucking
there's
stupid.
there's one thing that I did want to mention that has nothing to do with the spider deaths and all that stuff. So again, the story's pushing this whole thing with Miguel is like, we need to keep the canon secure. Like, you cannot change the canon. The web of Spider-Verse has to stay the same. Everyone has to have their pivotal canon moments that happen, and they all have to happen
And he
simultaneously.
already had one. But
Or
go ahead.
else we break the fabric of space and time, right? So that's his whole thing. And then again, but what I find is funny and interesting is that, like, when we talk about Spider-Man in the zeitgeist, we talk about Peter Parker, generally speaking. Miles Morales is a relatively newer thing that
He's an
people have been
anomaly.
talking about. He's different, and so is Spider-Gwen. But again, both of those things have become very popular in recent years.
She's
But
okay,
of course,
though.
when we talk
She's
about
okay, not Miles.
we talk
he's
about
a fucking
Spider-Man,
anomaly. But Gwen,
when we talk about Spider-Man, we generally talk about Peter Parker, right? And I find it funny that the character that is pushing this whole canon agenda is not Peter Parker. He's Miguel O'Hara. He's not a Peter Parker.
which is
And I
more
love that
interesting. Had they
and I
honed in on
love-
that, where it was like, it's
I-
like when you be like,
but
hey,
hold on.
Hitler, you're not blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and he's like,
Exactly.
oh, you're like, that's
Exactly.
more
But I love-
interesting.
But no,
That's
they
why
do
the movie
that.
should have
They
focused
do
in on
do
that shit and
Hold on,
ignored
hold on.
all the fucking
Hold
family
on.
crap.
They do that though, because there is a moment where he's like, Peter B. Parker comes in and he's like, why aren't you funny? Like, every other Spider-Man is
It's
supposed to
funny,
be
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
That is supposed to be a trait of Spider-Man, and you're
Yeah.
the only one who's an asshole, who's a Chucky Rance in this equation.
I'm
who's like,
curious what happens. Like, if he can see all the Spider-Verses, and their timelines aren't necessarily in line. Some are more advanced, some are not as advanced. Can he see? Maybe this goes into the comic books. Can he see a Spider-Man that's about to die? And do they do anything about it, or just leave him? Can they
probably
pull
just
that
leave it.
Spider-Man out of that universe, and then he just chills in this
But again, like,
universe?
that's why I'm like, I feel like the story in the meta sense is like trying to say, like, everything has to be like this, and the creators are saying, like, it doesn't always have to be the same thing, because then it's boring, because it's the same shit and we've seen it 100 times. And they're trying to say, like, it's okay if stories diverge from what the actual story, like, I think that is what the theme is trying to say. I do think it's just hard when you have that, and then at the same time we're doing this story about parents who are like having to be good parents to their kids, and like finding the struggle of like, when do I let my kid do his own thing? And like, that's sort of attached to the destiny versus free will thing, but it's also kind of like muddy,
That
because
stuff
then you're
always
like,
made
okay,
more
Oh, with
sense,
great
though,
power
when
comes great responsibility.
there was always that stuff always made more sense when it was like, if my parents find out who I am, then their lives will be at risk, right? And that was why, and it's a good moment when Gwen shows her face, because her dad's about to arrest her very early in the movie.
Yeah.
Her dad's about to arrest
Yeah.
her. She pulls the mask off. Who doesn't love moments of unmasking? Those are like the best moments in superhero movies in general. And she does it, and then for some reason her dad's still like, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say. It's like, really, Dad? Like, I thought that was kind of fucking stupid.
yeah, because he's
But,
an asshole.
But he's not an asshole. Like, he should have been built up as a fucking asshole, but instead he had been built up as like a good dad. Who's like, he's like, hey, I'm trying to find the guy who murdered your best friend, and she's like, yeah, Dad,
Right,
maybe you
because he's too
shouldn't,
blind.
you know?
Yeah, he's all like focused on that, but he completely. And again, this was something
Exactly.
I was thinking about when I was watching this, was that it's a very Spider-Man thing that tends to happen to him, even in the Peter Parker stuff, is that Spider-Man gets blamed for a lot of crap that was not his fault
Yeah.
to begin with, because
Yeah.
he was at the event at the time.
Because he was at the
trying
scene,
to-
yeah.
But every
Spider-Man,
story-
you killed my
I guarantee
dad.
you, go back, watch every
Ah.
Spider-Man cartoon, watch Spider-Man movies. It's always the same story. Spider-Man is doing good. Like
Yeah.
they talk about this in
No
the movie
good
as well.
deed goes unpunished.
He is trying to go do a good deed. He is trying to save people. He's trying to rescue people. He's trying to do all that
Yeah.
stuff. But what tends to happen is people see him in the like, of course, like we talk about this in James Bond all the time, right? Like you have to have people that are willing to do like somewhat bad things to stop these more bad people from doing worse things, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Spider-Man has always tried to maintain. I mean, he doesn't usually do bad things, but he's always trying to stop things. But
he is a vigilante.
In a
he
lot,
is a lawbreaker. Every superhero
but what
is
always
a
seems to
lawbreaker at
happen,
the end of the day.
what always seems to happen in every Spider-Man iteration or whatever story, what always happens is he goes out, he's trying to do something good. He stops the Green Goblin, he stops Doc Ock, whatever it might be. But while they're in these fights, there's all this damage that happens to the city, and there are people that may or may not get injured or hurt.
There's
right?
Civil
And
War.
Spider-Man,
Fun movie.
who do they blame? Everyone wants to blame the good guy because their thinking is like, well, if it wasn't for Spider-Man, then we wouldn't have all these villains.
Hey, Jonah Jameson, if it wasn't for fucking
and it's like
menace.
Even when it makes no sense, it's always let's blame Peter Parker. And so in that logic, I'm like, yeah, that carries over to the Gwen Stacy story where it's like,
but
even Gwen Stacy's dad's like,
I
even
agree
Sergeant
up until her dad's like, you have the right to remain silent. And I was like, what? And even she's like, Dad, what? Obviously, I didn't kill Peter. Why are you arresting me? He's like, anything you say can. Well, it's like, this is.
But like he thinks that he sees
stupid
that,
now.
and that's where he's like conflicted. And like I do appreciate like they're trying to create conflicted characters who are like trying to figure out what they're trying to do. I'll go back to the thing that I think is weak about this movie is that I do feel like, and I think you and I agree,
split.
The themes do feel split. They feel like they're doing two different themes, and that to me is just the weakest part of the movie. That's what I think you and I agree.
Remember this though. Remember, the first one ends with Miles laying in bed, and suddenly you hear the voice of Gwen, and it's clear that she's opened up a portal, and she says, "Hey, you got a minute?" And it's like, okay, cool. The sequel is going to be
that was
him hanging out with Gwen again. That's in the first movie.
That was in the first movie.
And what would have been what I would have been totally fine with like a Wizard of Oz type of thing where we start with her intro, because it was cool to see her backstory where it's like, oh wow, her Peter Parker became the Lizard, and she ended up killing him essentially. And then she.
So who cares?
Yeah. He was like, I just wanted to be cool like you.
I'm just waiting for this movie to like get to the point where we get to the next movie, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not into guys." That's the lead up to all these movies. I'm like, I feel like I'm like, if they're gonna say, oh, they are in a romantic relationship. I'm like, that would make sense, but it's just
I'm ethically non-monogamous with every Spider-Man except you.
Like, what happens if they get together and have a baby? Where does that baby live? What universe?
Like that would be so messed up.
But anyway, so what was I saying? Basically, once they do her story, because her backstory, great. That's a great way to open up this movie. And then to have her then go snatch up Miles and just pull him into the Spider-Man police force. And then the rest of the movie is the Spider-Man police force, and we're zipping around the multiverse doing different things. And
introduce Miles to it so that we all get introduced to it too.
Yes, and then again, just like Wanted, it's like here's the framework of the, and he says the Spider-Verse, and they go, Miguel's like, that's a stupid name. It's actually the arachnid multi-layered universe of life, or whatever the fuck he says. Like that stuff would have been like bring us into this world, but instead it's bogged down with the Spider-Man 2, where like we could have skipped all of the Spider-Man 2 crap, and I would have been very happy with it. And that would have been what I always talk about, where it's like, take your sequel and escalate. The first movie, we're trapped on Earth, 368, whatever the fuck it is, where it's Miles's Earth. Get away from this for the sequel. Just take us to the multiverse. Take us to Spider-Man police headquarters. Introduce us to that. All these other spider people, and then he goes off on a mission. And it's like, you got to get to Mumbai, Hatton, and do this thing. And then as that goes on, maybe it's like at first, he's in his naivete. He's like, oh, we're doing good things, working for the Spider Police. And then it turns out that they have some ulterior motive or whatever. But again, the movie gets bogged down by all of these Spider-Man 2 crap, which we've seen before, which isn't such a bad thing. If the whole movie would have been Spider-Man 2, that's a different story. But in the end, if your movie's going to be about the multiverse and you're bogging it down, bye McCurdy, and you're bogging it down with all the stuff about he's got the link, he can get back in here. That's where I'm like, it's kind of that's what kind of weakened it for me, was just this like general as McCurdy himself laid out, where it's like you have the family stuff and then you have the multiverse stuff. I would have thoroughly appreciated just the multiverse stuff.
Yeah,
just the multiverse stuff. You know,
I wanted more of that.
And
explain it further. Let me see more of it. How it works, what Miguel's up to, like more backstory of the key alternate Spider-Man, Spider people.
Exactly. So, okay,
they just spent so much time on Gwen, and it's like all Gwen for the first half, and it's like if you want a lot of Gwen, like mix it in, but
yeah. So her backstory, cool, because her backstory is interesting, but then from there, there's just a lot of like moping and all that crap. It's just like at a certain point, I was like, "Where the fuck is Miles?" You know. So, but this is what happens when you sign on for a 2-part
younger
sequel.
Crowd than the Tom Holland ones.
I don't know, but when you sign on for a 2-part sequel, what you inevitably get, is fat. You get fat stuff. Instead of making one sequel, you get a bunch of filler. You know, it happens every time they do this. So I mean, take
like we can do anything. Let's do it all. It's
one of my favorite fan edits ever is I took the 2 sequels to The Matrix, Reloaded and Revolutions, and I cut them into one 3-hour movie. And I think it's fucking perfect.
You did something similar, or were thinking about it for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, right? Why don't you make a Charlie Spider-Verse?
Yeah. I started
into the Charlie verse.
Well, I started in on a cut that would get rid of. Does McCurdy need us to
help me, guys? I'm stuck in the rant verse. I can't get out. It's messed up, dude. You guys don't understand. Dan's is like you, Charlie, in this universe.
Oh no!
And, like,
did your computer die?
Charlie, you only use 2-word sentences, and they've already killed me. And somehow I'm stuck in this universe. It's and
movie,
you know what's crazy?
Movie bad.
You know what's crazy?
Movie bad.
They put
Zodiac
is number 1 on their list, guys. Like it's messed up. Zodiac's number 1 on their list.
McCarty, get out of there.
I can't.
Get out of there.
I'm trying. My computer's broke.
Dude,
I got zapped into the other.
He lost his bracelet.
God,
I don't have the bracelet. My bracelet broke.
We got to get you a new fucking.
Are you Skrillex in that universe?
Dude, this universe is messed up, man.
This video quality ain't bad though. If
it
you want to just hang out right here.
My.
Well. Okay. I was gonna talk about some things while you were gone. As our resident progressive, I was gonna put my agenda in here.
Oh God!
But real quick, let's just change the subject a little bit, because we've been talking a lot about how this movie's themes are kind of scattered.
It's like you got you got a theme that is just they're 2 different ones, and it's like pick one.
Yeah.
Pick one.
McCurdy is in missing 2. Yeah, or missing 1. Searching 2, missing 1.
Yes.
But
finding.
It's
buffering. That's the episode.
Okay.
It should be called buffering.
If you're gonna do some gender flipping, in the first movie, Doc Ock is like the perfect gender flip, right? Where you just have this scientist lady.
Wait. Back up. So what's your issue with gender flips?
No. Well, I made the point earlier where gender flips, race flips,
right.
They're typically they're used as like, hey, look how creative this is. We gender flip this.
Story's different.
We go, no. It's not creative to just.
It's like you have this character that died, right? Like this character is always been used as like a tragic tale in the Spider-Man universe, and that's why Peter Parker is always afraid to get close to new people, and until of course he meets meets Mary Jane and stuff. But like they've always used it as like this is why Peter has to be more careful with who we like.
But what I'm getting at though is Doc Ock. Doc Ock in the first Into the Spider-Verse,
right,
where it's revealed where she's like, my name is Dr. Olivia Octavius or whatever. Like that is the perfect gender flip. That type of stuff, that flavor of stuff where she's just scientist lady until all of a sudden like she's got like these 8 arms come out and you're like, oh my god, this is Doc Ock. Like that is where gender flipping is actually creative versus generally
where
gender
it's surgically
are
not as creative.
Wait,
yeah, like
are you talking about Spider-Woman
hormones
or specific?
God, you're like a child wandering in a
I don't know what
conversation with
I don't know where you're going. This is me. I'm like, where are we going here? Like what?
I'm talking about going. I'm talking about the first movie because
like
your computer broke
He's
and now
stuck in the
you're
closet.
sitting in a basement.
I'm sitting in my basement, bro. I don't know what happened, dude. My computer basically lost all power. But anyway, let's just. Oh, there we go. Okay, here we go.
So okay, and then as for the self-aware stuff, in the first movie,
right?
Just an example of 2 things because we talk about this a lot. Like as franchises go on, they inevitably become self-aware because somebody's like, wouldn't it be really funny if he like looked at the camera and said this never happened to Sean Connery? That would be so funny if we did that, right? And then everybody else is like, you're stupid. But in the first movie, there's Peter B. Parker says they're spying on Fisk, and he's like, yeah, he'll probably say something to her like to the scientist. He'll be like, you have 24 hours to do this. And then they cut down to Fisk and he's like, you have 24 hours. And he's like, yeah, see, I told you. Like stuff like that is self-aware, but that is creative, fun, self-aware where it's like,
yeah, I wouldn't call that.
But it's because Peter's been through so many adventures that he's like, yeah, usually this happens and then this happens. Right. The stuff that I don't like is when it was like, Miles says something like, when are we going to get, who else are we going to meet or something like that? Right. Are there other Spider-Men or something? And Peter B. Parker says, we'll save it for Comic-Con. And you're like,
what's Comic-Con?
You're like, okay, fuck you. That type of self-aware stuff is stupid. And they referred to Comic-Con in this movie, but they did it well, where his mom was like, is this that thing where you dress up like the movie character at the Comic-Con? And it's like, okay, that's good. But there, like my vibe with self-awareness is like, you got to do it like that first one. And when you do it like the second one, I'm just like, shut up, Lord and Miller. Shut up.
I liked,
shut up.
I'm going to say one of my favorite moments in the movie was the flip of what universe you were in. And I love the edit of that because it's like you're thinking like, oh, he flipped. Like at first you're like thinking, oh, he went back to his universe and everything's hunky dory and like he's gonna talk to his mom, he's gonna come out and he's gonna say, look, I'm Spider-Man, and like I don't care if you're mad. It's like this is what I do. I gotta say.
He never said, is Dad okay? Because she would have said, your dad's fucking dead, bro.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, he just says, is everything okay or something?
Where you're under, but I do feel like if you're paying attention, you can see the tells because earlier in the movie when Gwen is in his bedroom, there's like a box and there's this toy and she opens it. You don't see any of that stuff. Like if you look carefully, you never see any of the stuff in his bedroom. So like, you can, if you're paying attention, you can catch like he's in the wrong universe. And like they had already made the point where he's like, yeah, your the spider that bit you is from a different universe. It wasn't from your universe.
But
so they already make
that weird.
They make those points. Hold on, they make those points, but then like when I watch that scene, I'm like, this is great because if you're not paying attention, you're just like, oh, he's in his universe. And the way they cut to Gwen, and you're thinking like Gwen's right outside, and she stops the Scarlet Spider, and you're like, okay, like they're gonna meet up, and then you find it, then it's like dropped where she's like, wait, is that Comic-Con thing? And she's like, no, I'm fucking Spider-Man. And she's like, yeah, your uncle's gonna be home in a little bit. And you're like, wait,
because
what?
It's funny. It's like the world without Spider-Man, everything's on fire. Like it's just like a hellscape. Like without Spider-Man,
it looks like Gotham.
It's like Gotham, yeah, but like even worse. But and that I can do this. I can like squint and I can be like, okay, that's fine. Because the computer, the logic is that they have this computer. The Spider-Man police have this computer that can determine what universe you're from, and they'll send you back. And so it was like they could do that with any kind of organic creature and send them back to their universe. So technically, Miles Morales would have two. He would have the spider that bit him, but then he himself would indicate one. So you'd think the computer would have been like, this guy's split. But for the sake of the movie, I'm okay with them being like
to one universe.
I think it was yeah. What they could have done that? They could have sent his powers back to Earth 42 and sent him back without his powers back to his Earth.
Point with that, right? Weird point with that.
Oh no.
Let me go to a weird. Okay, this is a real nerdy weird point about that. Is that they've established that it's all based around that it's this DNA of the spider, the thing that gave you the powers. That is how they established.
But no, they were sending like random gorillas and shit back to their. They were sending anomalies back to their universe.
Right. But then, like, this is what I find that's really funny about that is that, like, not all the spider people got their spider powers because some spider bit them.
Yeah.
Even spider, like, so the pregnant Spider Woman in the comics, that's not how she got her powers. She didn't get bitten by a spider. There's actually this whole other thing with the high evolutionary.
Spider?
No, like, remember the high evolutionary in the
Her
Guardian?
baby is a spider.
The spider. The pregnant spider that's what's giving her powers. No,
is it Petty or Patty or Peppy or whatever, the little Asian girl who is like, she's probably my favorite of all of them. Where she's
just like an anime character.
I'm an anime character, you know, and she's like, I have a psychokinetic link with my spider, you know. She's the shit. But she just has a spider that like crawls around on her that is her best friend. She never got bit by it. She just has a psychokinetic connection with it or whatever. So
yeah,
McCurdy, this automatically cuts out your mic when I talk. It's kind of really fucking useful. I could just talk over you as much as I want.
You do it all.
Yeah, you go ahead and keep trying to talk. I have such an advantage over you right now because if I just keep filibustering you, it doesn't matter what you say. I can just keep overriding your voice.
I think that Mighty
blah,
Ducks,
blah, 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 blah.
Mighty Ducks. And I'm here sitting there like Mighty Ducks 3 is a piece of garbage. And you're all like Mighty Ducks, the other Mighty Ducks one's or Mighty Ducks 3 is the best one because let me tell you, they go to college and it's not actually college, but that's the best one. And I've already laid out every argument.
I can't wait.
Mighty Ducks 1 is the best Mighty Ducks, unfortunately.
I can't wait.
I think that you and I would agree. You're going to be like, because I would go into it and I'd be like, Mighty Ducks 2 is the best one. And that's what most people would say is the best one, as fan favorite. But then when you watch Mighty Ducks 2, you're like, it's actually, story-wise, it's not as good. And Mighty Ducks 1 is actually the superior Mighty Ducks. I'm just
gonna flate my mic as I usually do it.
So like anyway.
So the only last thing I wanted to talk about with my love of Spider-Man is just in general, and again, that's why Uncle Aaron Davis just being like, just keep going, bro, is kind of weak. The whole idea of with great power comes great responsibility is probably the greatest fucking message of all time. Like, of all time. Not only does Spider-Man just the shit, like, I just want to be Spider-Man, I want to die, and I want to be reincarnated as Spider-Man and be web slinging around buildings and trees and all that. But that line is fan fucking tastic. And then at the end of the first movie, they actually put up a quote from Stan Lee that says, "That person who helps others simply because it should or must be done and because it is the right thing to do is indeed without a doubt a real superhero." Love that shit. They put that up at the beginning of Into the Spider-Verse, and because the whole thing is, and even in the Civil War, when they bring Spider-Man into the MCU, he even says, he's like, you know, at some point he's like, I think Tony Stark is like, you know, why don't you use these powers to bang chicks? And he's like, dude, you know, he's like,
He doesn't say that.
He's
Get the fuck out of here.
He straight up says that. He straight up says that. But
Straight up
but
says
he's like,
that, right?
but he's like, yeah, I could use these powers to be the star of the
I'm in
football
another
team,
universe.
but he's like,
I'm
I
in
didn't
another
have
universe.
them. I didn't have them before, and now I'm. I got to continue to be me regardless, and do the right thing and all that. And that is the charm of Spider-Man, is that he could be a bad guy. And again, that's the whole thing with Bond. That whole rant I went on breaking down the Bonds, the whole point of it was that he is a bad guy. Like, Bond is a bad guy, but he's on the side of goodness for the sake of goodness. And that makes all the difference, because any one of these good guys could be a bad guy. Any one of these bad guys could be a good guy if they chose with their free will to do, whatever the opposite. And that's the, like we've been talking about, Quantum, or I've been editing the shit out of Quantum, and with that too, it's like, well, why does Quantum do what they do? Why does Spectre do what they do? And it's like they have the power to take over things, control things for the sake of the goodness of everybody. But no, they do it probably because they want to continue to have like weird sex orgies or whatever the fuck. And that's the whole point is that quote right there, that person who helps others simply because it should or must be done and because it is the right thing to do is indeed, without a doubt, a real superhero. And that is just like the best. That's why, Spider-Man, as much as web slinging looks like biking, but like infinitely better. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. I went with biking. Biking is like the closest that I ever get to web slinging.
Biking.
What about wakeboarding?
Skateboarding. Like
maybe air chairing. Maybe air chairing, but maybe air chairing because you got a rope.
I was going to say watching you two doing hardcore in high school. That was the closest to Spider-Man. Web slinging.
Yeah.
Slinging webs.
Well, we didn't do an initial ranking, but
no, we didn't.
Where you feel this?
I definitely think it's above Ant-Man.
I haven't even thought about it.
Super Mario Brothers.
Ant-Man and the Wasp has become Thunderball. That's Thunderball threshold. It's like anything stupid is below that, and then anything above.
But like I'm thinking, like, okay, but this is what makes it hard, right? Because when we're talking about this movie, you're coming out of the gate.
It's like how you can't rank Lord of the Rings. Like how do you? This is a part one of.
Well, you can't rank.
Could be a
you can't rank the Lord of the Rings.
Movie.
You can't rank each individual Lord of the Rings movies because it's all one movie. And that's
Nan. I mean, to answer what Nan just said, hey, real quick, let's put Fellowship of the Ring in this list. Oh, number one. Okay, let's forget about that. Let's rank Towers. Oh, number one. King, number one. We've ranked a lot of sequels. Let's look at them real quick. We got Magic Mike, we got Evil Dead, we got Ant-Man, we got Scream, we got Missing, we got Dungeons and Dragons.
Here's
two
things that I have to put out.
John Wick,
Fast X was the closest thing to this movie that we have on this list.
What is?
And Fast X. Because I'll say this, I am.
But that feels more complete than this one.
But
I don't think this can be above
doesn't feel complete. I think I did point out, and I put this in my notes. This movie doesn't have a true climax like any other movie because they basically took a really long script and added a lot to make two movies, right? I do think that the closest thing we get to a climax in this movie is when Gwen goes back to see her dad. And then they reconcile. That is the closest thing you get to an actual climax. It is a low stakes climax for this big movie with all these different Spider-Men and the fate of all of reality, not the universe, the reality. But that's the closest thing you get to a climax in this movie. I do feel like I have conflicting feelings because when I look at the list, I'm not going to say this list is fucked. I'm looking at the list. I'm thinking more of terms of the theme we're talking about, the two different themes, right? Because we got one theme that's all about destiny versus free will, which is a very strong theme. But you also have another theme about parenting and, letting your kids go or being the helicopter parent or tough love versus of coddling kids, I guess. And like those themes you can kind of see with Shazam and Dungeons and Dragons, and like letting your kids, you know, be who they want to be, or like not letting them be who they want to be, but allowing them to learn their own way, kind of thing. And we see that with Megan, we see that with Missing, but then you get the Destiny and free will stuff as well. And that's where I'm split where I would put this. I did think it was going to list high when I was thinking about it, but I was like, I have no idea what Charlie and Nans are going to think about this movie. And I also do think that when you look at the pros of this movie, like the artwork, the animation style, like I think those are all really great. I do think this is a definitely feast for your eyes. And when it comes to the form of the movie, it outshines a lot of these movies in the same regards that I think John Wick 4 is a lot about form as far as how you make the movie. John Wick 4 is a lot about how you make a really incredible action movie. But I don't think it's John Wick 4, because I do think that what weighs it down is like it's conflicting themes, where it's like you've got two different kind of stories that you're trying to tell. And that's where I'm at. Like I think it's above Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think in my head it's maybe as high as Fast X, somewhere around that range. Like that's my range right now.
I was gonna say, if I start at the top and work my way down, I start slowing down in the 10 range, and if I start at the bottom and work my way up, I start slowing down in the machine range. So somewhere between like Dungeons and Scream is where I'm currently looking.
I can see it above. Like I'm always gonna say it's probably above Scream. It's above Scream. That's where I'm gonna say. Above Scream.
I am right there with you guys, where your initial instinct was roughly around 9. I do the same thing. I start at the bottom, go to the top, start at the top, go to the bottom, and every time I land at roughly above Shazam, below Fast, because I think Fast is simply just more of like a knows what it is movie.
Yeah.
Like Fast is just like, we are Fast and Furious, bitch. Whereas with this, it was a little more confused in its themes and all that. And the animation is so good. The animation is so good. Yeah.
Louis B. Any spot below John Wick is good. That's fine.
Yeah, which
John
I
Wick
agree with.
is-
That.
Louis
I
B is
agree
number
with
one.
that sentiment. So
I will. I
for
think,
me,
I think below
it's
Fast X is fine with me too.
right at number 9.
I agree, below
do
Fast
me
for
just
sure.
fine. Yeah, like I can like Shazam. Shazam even has.
Does it
like,
beat Shazam?
I think it beats Shazam. I
think
could give it form issue.
At least that's like a complete. That's the thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like
Complete
Shazam.
story
Okay,
or
so
not.
Fast X also does not have a climax. It doesn't have a. It has like this climactic in chase scene.
That's true.
but
Both
then
these
you're
movies
left-
have a cliffhanger.
They have your
Both
cliffhanger.
of
They're
them.
both cliffhanger movies, and I think that's where
They
I'm
are.
like, that's why they're both at that spot, because they're cliffhanger movies. And
But in Fast X, they
generally-
drive off the cliffhanger.
Generally speaking, I don't think that
pretty cool.
I don't think that part 2 movies are like like when you do part 1, part 2, I don't like part 1. I just rather would have one part. Like I didn't like the idea of, I think Infinity War was kind of a different situation.
Yes,
Because they do end on such a really great
That's a
ender.
whole movie.
That's a really, really, really good
that's
way
a
to
whole
cliffhang.
movie unto itself.
It's a really good cliffhanger. But like a movie like any of, like when Harry Potter started that trend, when they were making like, oh, we're gonna do part 1, part 2, and then Divergent did it, and then Twilight was doing it, and then there were like Hunger Games decided to do it, and like everyone was like, oh, we need to get on this train of like
We can make more
doing
money if we make 2 movies
of the end, and then like
take all those deleted scenes and shove them in there. Shove the deleted
Like,
scenes in, and it's a
take,
whole movie.
take a whole story that is The Hobbit and split that into 2. No, wait, split it into 3 movies because we make more money that way.
That's what
Like
fucked up
I
The
don't
Hobbit.
like that. I don't like that. I will say with this movie, I feel like I give it a little more of a pass because they are trying to savor all these like more personal moments that you were kind of throwing away in your head. You're like, I don't give a shit about this. But to me, I was like, okay, we're trying to like at least develop some kind of character development between how Miles and Gwen at least have some commonalities, because we really didn't understand who Gwen was in the first
Here
one.
he comes.
And I
could put it above Shazam just on form alone. On
No, and
form alone.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm there. That's
below
kinda where I'm
Fast
at.
X because of
I'm there.
just like even just Fast X, knowing what it is, delivering exactly what it is, and
because they're dumb movies.
Fast movies know what they are and they deliver. And I mean, my whole thing was that like Fast should be signaling an end. It should end. If it doesn't end, if Fast 11 or 12 isn't the final movie, like California needs to get the big one, and the whole fucking state needs to fall into the Pacific just based on Fast and Furious alone.
What's wrong
Like,
with you?
let it all sink because of that franchise. But above Shazam on form alone and below Fast on story. That's where I'm at.
Yep.
I'll agree. I'm on that. Yeah.
Well,
Makes sense.
fellas,
I think
we're
we've
gonna
come
lock
to
it in right now.
I think we've come to agreement.
Here we go. Wait, I'm gonna copy and paste this because this is just too long of a fucking title.
No, but to be fair with Louis B's comment, I do think like when you think of the differences, it's like Infinity War to
I was
me
wondering
was
if it was going to be all messed up.
oh.
Let's see if
Infinity War to me was a
damn it.
Empire Strikes Back.
No.
Versus,
Do you have a
this
format
movie-
painter?
How do I copy?
Just write it out at this point.
I know I have to. Like that? No.
If you're so
Like that?
smart, why isn't this better?
This is bullshit. I gotta type the whole fucking thing out. Damn post-it notes. All right, here we go. Spider dash man.
Man. Comma.
Colon.
Colon.
Across
Cross
the spider
spider
dash
dash
verse. Got it.
verse. There you
Got
go.
it. And then I gotta change
did
all these fucking numbers. All right, somebody fill in while I change all these numbers.
McCurdy was
So
saying
anyway.
something.
Yeah, we're
So anyway, Mighty Ducks. Let me tell you. So Mighty Ducks 1 is actually a pretty clearly good movie, and here's why. So Mighty Ducks 1 is actually all about.
Just like when we did
Mighty
Jar
Ducks
Parts.
1 is all about Coach Bombay and how he goes from being an alcoholic, and that's the fun part. So his name is Bombay because his name's Gordon Bombay because he's named after alcohol. That was the actual thing, and it's crazy to think that this is a Disney movie. So it's the kid version of the movie. So they made it like they watered it down, but it's also the movie that puts in like a race joke because like the front line of the team is the Oreo line. So like you've got two black kids and the one white kid, so they're the Oreo line. So that's in the first movie, by the way. And like so they call him the Oreo line. And that's the first movie, but it's all this whole thing where it's like he's dealing with like this emotional trauma of like I have to win, and he forgets how to have fun. And like that's the first movie, and it's like a great story. But then you get to the second movie, and it's like everyone's favorite movie, but like they completely like write off a bunch of stuff right in the beginning of the movie where they're like, "What happened to Hans? Oh, he went back to Iceland. This is Hans' brother," and you're like, "Great." But then you're like, "What happened to you and Charlie's?"
Sense to you?
You're like,
no,
what happened to you and Charlie's Charlie's mom? I thought you were a thing. Oh, she left me and
I'm
she
gonna
got
get
married
revenge on
with
McCurdy by muting him. So McCurdy's gonna keep talking muted. SB,
He
what
just
the
wants to
fuck do
talk
you have
about the
against
Duck
Guardians?
movies.
What do you have against Guardians? Because everybody's like, oh, MCU cape shit. Guardians has always been kind of like it transcends MCU. Like Guardians is its own thing outside of the MCU, more or less. You know, they still have some shit in there, but like Guardians has like people who hate the MCU tend to love Guardians. So like, what do you have against motherfucking Guardians?
Wait, Charlie, you like the Guardians.
Yes.
So you hate the MCU.
No. That's false.
You just hate new things.
You just hate new things.
That's the whole thing, right? It's like people generally have the inability to hold two ideas in their head at once. I mean, like this movie had. I hesitate to even bring it up because it's a can of worms. But they're like sneaking in their fucking propaganda shit is just like, God damn it! Like Gwen, like on Gwen's wall, she had like.
I knew you were gonna say it.
Yeah. Did you see it? Did you see it?
I was like,
See what?
I was like, I saw it, and I was like, Charlie's gonna hate this movie.
Yeah, on
What was
Gwen's
it?
wall.
That was my
on
first.
Gwen's
That was my
wall
first
was
reaction. Like, oh, Charlie's not gonna like this one.
on Gwen's wall. She had a protect trans kids
Because Charlie
poster,
wants.
and
I didn't
it's
notice.
just like, okay.
I did.
But if you look into that for 5 minutes, it's like you're not protecting trans kids. You're protecting their abusive parents from going to prison for abusing their children. But putting that aside, and then it's like, and then Miles is like, let me just sit here and awkwardly hold my BLM sticker in front of your fucking face for 5 minutes. Let's just do that.
Right.
But in the Quantum of Solace
it
episode,
wasn't a sticker. It was his pin on his backpack.
yeah, who gives a fuck? Yeah, who gives a fuck?
But you don't care because.
But just like
triggered.
Scream 6, just like Scream, it's as
Hold
if
on,
it's like somebody's like, we can't shoehorn our stupid fucking agenda into the movie itself. So it's like the animators are like, well, then we're gonna fucking animate it in without because we want to, and it's from just like you're just shoehorning crap in there for no fucking reason. But we in the Quantum episode, we talk about how Green Planet, the whole thing is that a Dominic Green is like, give me your money and I'll save the planet. And all these people are like, yeah, you're right. Here's all my money. Go save the planet. And like,
right.
That's what BLM is. BLM was like, give us your money.
I don't know how we got here. I stopped listening.
I
working on the list.
Yeah, I'm like,
we got here because they just fucking shoehorn crap in there for
I don't
reason.
think they shoehorn crap in. I think
they
that
do.
Makes sense
They
with
fucking
those
do.
specific
They
characters.
really do.
That seems like a real thing that those characters would probably.
Wait, what? Because they're black?
Probably
because they're
young
black.
kids
Just because
nowadays.
Miles,
I would
Miles
imagine that a black kid of that age would probably support it.
Miles
BLM.
is too smart to follow BLM. Miles would be
right.
Miles would be like, hey guys, BLM is actually like a fucking corrupt institution that just takes your money and keeps it. You think BLM is helping black people? No, it's not. It's just keeping all your fucking money, and all these stupid people are giving their money to this organization. That's what Green Planet is. Green Planet's like, we're gonna save the planet with your money, and then they just keep your money, and you look like an idiot because
anyway.
You gave money
So the
to them.
Quantum episode should be coming
anyway.
out soon.
Yeah. I mean, do you know how hard it is for me to not integrate BLM into the Quantum episode? I'm like trying to stop by putting my messaging in there, but it's not political. It's just realistic. That's me. I'm not political. I'm just realistic. Where it's like, it's like, yeah, you think this organization called Black Lives Matter actually cares about Black lives? No, they care about green money, bitch. And you're giving them your fucking money. So then Miles Morales is like, yeah, I'm all about this BLM. No. I think that's out of character, and I think that's racist. I think it's racist because people can find racism in everything.
But okay,
people can find racism. People can be offended by anything. Where it's like, well, wait a second. Why is this movie that has this Puerto Rican / black kid? Why is all the music hip hop? That's racist. That's the what? Just black people listen to hip hop. Like my point being that you can get offended by anything. People can find anything to be offended about, and that's what makes everything stupid today. So personally, I fucking love his character, and I love the music.
Charlie loves to be offended.
Charlie was offended. Got it. Copy that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Here I am, as usual. Here I am, just speaking the truth.
Yeah,
and
I'm
you
speaking the truth.
You motherfuckers just
act
like I'm the enemy. But
all right, guys,
I'm too
I don't really care about that, but I just
want
to reiterate. Nance, Nance, shut the fuck up for just a second. I just want to reiterate that Mighty Ducks 2 is actually not the best Mighty Ducks. I know everybody wants to say Mighty Ducks 2 is the best one, but Mighty Ducks 1 is actually the best one, unfortunately. It's like I watched both of those movies, okay? Mighty Ducks 2 has got some lazy ass writing. Mighty Ducks 1 has an actual story. Mighty Ducks 2 doesn't make and guess what?
Mighty Ducks 1 is about like the life cycle, and it's about like the meaning of like death.
It has
like
a meaning.
Life
Mighty Ducks 2 is like,
you know what I mean?
Mighty Ducks 1 is like about Coach Bombay dealing with his childhood trauma and realizing that like he didn't need to listen to this a-hole coach who was like trying to make him do terrible things. And
who is a satanic figure?
Honest
that coach is
and
a
that's what he does in
satanic
the first
figure.
one. But then when you get to the second one, you got to throw a satanic figure in there, right? Because that's a Chucky Rants. That's an
Yeah.
idiism of
A
Chucky Rants.
staple.
But then the second
Staple.
one's all fun. I will give you this. The second one's fun, right? Like it's got all these different collected characters, and they're all like, "Oh, I'm from this part of the state, and we have like we use our little rodeo thing. Like we do all that. Like that's fun." But like at the end of the day, there's like the theme is not as strong as it is in the first one. So that's why the first one is still the best Mighty Ducks.
I prefer Little Giants.
Okay,
Okay,
we're
this
we're
is why-
approaching 2 hours, so why don't we go ahead and just bring the list back one more time?
Right.
There it is. All right, just for old time's sake, let me just read it. Beau Is Afraid, Infinity Pool, Guardians 3, John Wick 4, Tetris, Air, Creed 3, Fast X, Spider-Man, Multiverse 2, Shazam 2, Dungeons and Dragons 17, Megan Missing the Machine 1, Scream 6, Mario Brothers 1, Ant-Man 12, Renfield, Evil Dead 16, The Pope's Exorcist 1, Magic Mike 3, Knock at the Cabin 1, Plane 1, soon to be followed up by Boat, Cocaine Bear, Go Fuck Yourself, Knights of the Zodiac, also Go Fuck Yourself. You're at the bottom because you're stupid. That's the list. That's where we're at, everybody.
What if Knights of the Zodiac 2 really makes Knights of the Zodiac 1 really
legit?
Legit. You're
We are
like,
at 25.
We're at 25.
Quarter of the way to 100.
We're
like
we're
you
halfway
could
through the
say-
year, basically.
Well, yeah, but
Uh-oh.
we're like we cheated a little bit.
Shouldn't
'cause
we be
added
at like
a couple movies in there.
150 then?
We
I
cheated.
am
We
more
added
than
some-
down to be at like
Oh, weekly, not
God,
daily.
more
Hold
than
on.
52 by the time we're done. And that's
Hold
the thing. Any of you
No,
watching,
I
if you're like, if anybody watching is like, wait, guys, there's this movie that's like 13 lives. It's dope. You got to add it. It's got to be on the list.
I mean, we definitely
We'll
messed up
we'll
watching
add it.
Zodiac. There was like 2 or 3 other good movies.
Yeah, but
We
there's
should have
always
watched. I
some
would have
jumping
gladly
off the
watched the
Hypnotic.
old lady movie. I
What
would have watched
about
80
what
for
was?
Brady too.
Is it Hypnotic? The Ben F.
Yeah, Hypnotic
F
came
movie?
out. I think that was a Robert Rodriguez movie too. But it just like, it's just interesting doing this exercise because we're seeing how like certain movies get overly marketed and some other movies they just don't put a lot of money to market the movies. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just find that in itself I think is very interesting. But it also tells you a lot about how good the studio thinks the movie is, because a lot of times the ones that aren't marketed well are probably trash, and the ones that and the reverse is true for the ones that are marketed well. So
Yeah.
you never know. Or they know, like for instance, I know you didn't like Evil Dead, but like they knew that was going to have a fan base, so they're probably going to make money off of it. So we better tell people we're going to pump this movie out, kind of thing.
This is another reminder. I will be out of town this coming weekend.
Okay.
But
well,
since it's the
follow up.
Transformers movie and I want to see it, I'm going to try to see it.
This
Let
is
me
my
call
point
you
right
up.
here, though, from SB.
And I'll
is
call you
phone
up.
in.
like SB, the world is run by money at the end of the day, so of course it's a big hit. Like take the Halloween reboot, whatever it is. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was like the
Transformers
perfect way to
Wednesday.
end that whole fucking franchise. But no, it made a bunch of money, so then they made a sequel and they ruined it again. And
I think they
then
were-
Halloween just continues to ruin itself every time they reboot themselves. So it all comes down to the almighty dollar. And as much as I think Into the Spideyverse would have just been a great, like, just one-off, they have to make another one. And I think this second one is just weak compared to the first one. I think it's watered down and weak versus the first one, even though it still brings the same art style, which is like the shit.
I think I honestly think it excels in the art style. Like that's my.
Sure.
I genuinely think that the art
And
style.
I
they
go,
win,
who
they
cares?
did a lot better in this one.
Who fucking cares?
So yeah, Nans, thanks for reminding me. Next week is Transformers: Rise of the Beast. I will have to
Oh my
brush up
God.
on Bumblebee because I hadn't watched that one,
Oh,
and I
no.
didn't.
Is this
Yeah,
a sequel to that one?
Oh no!
Well,
I have to
okay,
watch
so-
This
all
almost
those
seems like
movies.
its own thing. I
Well,
love the
yeah, so
Transformers movies. I'm excited to see
I-
them.
Oh no!
I like. Here's the thing. Here's my thing about the Transformers. I liked the first Transformers movie. I thought it was good enough because Spielberg was
You
at
can
By
least
the
over-
fourth
respect it.
one, it's like
telling Mike, at least
Jesus.
Spielberg was there and was like, Michael Bay,
Yeah.
Bay, you can't do that shit. You
Yeah.
got to go back to at least doing something that people are recognized, like ET. Like do ET basically with Transformers. Like, okay, cool, I get it. Like that's what the first one is. But then they get 2, and you're like he just goes ape shit with all of his Bayisms, and then you get 3, which I feel like 3 was a little bit better than 2. 4 is just dumb. 5 is even extra dumb. Like 5 had a moment where I was like, oh, this might be cool, and then it was like, no, this is dumb.
Yeah.
It's not. And the thing is just it's a lot of just Bay, just more focused on making things look cool rather than having any kind of like anything to understand. But then they finished that one, and then they made Bumblebee, which was like a prequel, but it's directed by somebody else. I've never seen that one. I haven't heard.
I remember thinking it was pretty decent, but it's been a while. So,
but Bumblebee is like its own thing, and so this one's sort of a sequel to Bumblebee, and it takes place in '94. So I don't. It's going to be kind of a weird, like, oh, you liked Beast Wars? Here's Beast Wars now. So I
liked Beast Wars.
Mildly interested in watching this. It's not like it wasn't a list topper for me. As far as movies, as far as the summer movies goes, the one that I wanted to see the most is The Flash, and Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Yeah,
Oppenheimer rated R, apparently.
SB, you're gonna have Trans Am Life Matters.
It's Trans Am Life.
That's a car joke.
I
was wondering, but
you guys think the new Transformers
I don't
movie
think
will
there
have
is a
Trans
Trans
Life
Am.
Matters? Yeah.
Yeah,
Trans
whatever.
Am, yeah. But yeah, we
Bumblebee's
got
a Camaro or a
That's
Beetle.
hands
You
down
know,
makes sense. But
We got to keep
Man, I need to
sneaking our
ask you.
stupid fucking messaging into all these movies just to
man,
piss off
I
people.
want to see Transformers meets the Fast series.
Oh yeah,
It's all about family, baby.
That
But,
would be dope.
But then you'd have Dom
Yeah.
fighting a
Vin Diesel.
Megatron.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I am a Transformer. And he
Toretto,
transforms into a
we
car.
need you. We need you to drive Bumblebee. Bumblebee's retarded now. He got hit way too hard by Mega X. You need to drive
Oh my
him
God.
to go defeat the super
Upgrade
metal
his
car
stereo
people.
so he could talk cooler.
and they're like, hey, we can give you a super fancy headset, and he's like, no, I prefer speaking to a walkie-talkie. 'cause I
Optimus
look
needs
cooler when I do it."
nitrous.
And I look-
Optimus. Walkie-talkie.
That's what I want to see. That's the movie. That's the dream movie. Is a Fast and Furious Transformers crossover. Paramount and Universal make this happen. Do that.
Anyway,
That'd
do you guys have anything else to say about the Spider-Verse? Which
hold on.
apparently I'm the villain tonight.
You are the villain,
fucking
but I
villain
do, Charlie.
tonight.
I will say, even though you were the villain tonight, I do think that we did come to an agreement as far as like, at least kind of where we felt like the movie was weak in some aspect. I do like appreciate that we found some common ground. We're like, yeah, it's weak here, but like
I'm always going to be
the worst
hard.
movie.
I'm always going to be hard on the stuff that I love the most. Other people are like again, I've said before on this show where I dated this girl who was like, I can't say a bad thing about Batman. I just love Batman. And you just always ruin Batman. I'm like, shut up. You got to face the truth.
Wait, which Batman are we talking about though?
Specifically, that was Dawn of Justice, where I was like,
yeah, that one
I was like,
not.
babe, come here. Let me educate you on how fucking awful
that one was not good.
And
For
she's like, she was like, no, I just like, let me enjoy it. And I was like, no, you're stupid.
I will.
Let me make you
when it
not
comes to that
stupid.
movie, when it comes to that movie, it's like if you just take the
right.
sequence when he fights all the bad guys towards the end of the movie, and you just take that as it is without any context, I'm like, that was a cool sequence. But like, you put it in the rest of the movie, it's just like the movie's all over the place. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, SB. I forgot SB's a big fan of. He's a big fan of that fucking movie.
SB likes. Wait,
sorry, SB.
He's a BBS.
It's the best Batman and Superman movie. Okay, yeah, sure.
No.
Technically,
only,
who said,
fair enough.
like, no, it's like Kever said. Kever's like, this is the best Spider-Man movie this year. Okay, yeah,
Right,
sure.
right,
Yeah,
right.
definitely is. Yeah,
right.
No doubt.
I don't
anyway,
know.
who are we toasting to?
Oh yeah. So, I don't have it up now. But you know what? Hold on. Give me a second. Just
Okay,
tell me,
gonna chat
Charlie.
to-
Wait
tell
a
me
minute,
why,
is this true?
Charlie, I need you to tell me why. I need you to tell me why. Mighty Ducks 1 is not the best.
Oh wait, you want me to talk
I'm
about
gonna
BLM
leave.
again? No, here.
What's
Hey
that?
guys. No, let me go off for 45 minutes about BLM.
Oh my God,
No,
Charlie, shut up! You sound like a racist. Come on. You just smell
No,
like a
just give me
racist.
this platform to talk about BLM for 45 minutes.
This is
Give me
Charlie.
45 minutes.
This is your Chucky rants for today. I found a photo of all the Shia buffs. The Shia or the Shiaverse.
The
Shiaverse. That's all of the Chucky rants enter the Shiaverse. Like that's the next movie that we need to make is enter the Shiaverse. And then of course tonight we are toasting to Charlie and I talked about this and we're like, I don't know anyone specific, and the only thing I could say is like the highlight of this movie is the animation. Like,
is that not telling
overall
though?
form and
That's
making of it.
fucking telling though. Like it's
I think when it comes to animation, BL being
like
Be Like
McCurdy.
McCurdy. Yeah, please do. Thank you, SB. Appreciate that.
Give every movie
I don't care.
you
If
want.
you want to
like
donate
a pass.
to Be Like McCurdy, send a super chat.
Yeah,
or-
super chats.
You could
All
send
these
it.
super
SB's
chats
not
go
sending
straight to
super
BLM.
chats.
Everything regarding being
Oh my
like
God.
McCurdy. Send us all your money, and we swear it will go to a good cause. It's not going to go to us buying really.
Wait, I want to see SB's.
real
SB's
estate
going to
in
write us a
California.
paragraph about why BVS is a
No.
good movie.
We're doing
And,
hashtag
You
BLM.
can do it in the Discord.
McCurdy Lives Matter. Send us your money, and we
right,
swear
okay.
we won't squander it. We
MLM.
swear we won't squander it.
Multi-level
We're not going to keep
marketing.
it for ourselves. But anyway, here's
toast to
toast
the
is
animation
for
in this
the
movie
anime
is.
cores.
I will say, I really do hope this movie gets if it gets recognition. I do hope it gets recognition for best animated film this year. Like I genuinely have not seen a
don't know
good
what else they would
animated
be
an
recognized for.
animated film that was this well done and it doesn't stick to some like weird trope of being like it has to be like Pixar. Like this one really does stand out as far as its animation goes.
They already won an Oscar for the first one, and that was
Did
well
it?
deserved. If it
Yeah.
loses, I don't give a fuck.
I feel like
I don't give a
yeah,
fuck.
Charlie, I get where you would say it's like, well, it would lose because the story wasn't the same as this one, but I do feel like when you're grading it on specifically animation, I feel like the
Yeah.
animation this is far
Oh,
far
the
reaching than most
cinematography
animated
is
films
so
do.
good. Who gives a fuck about the fucking cinematography if the story sucks?
Well, when you're talking
Who
about
gives a fuck?
again, when you're talking about animated films, like it is heavily implied that you're talking about, because if we were just talking about like best films, that's what I think is weird about that category. Is like for a period of time, like animated films were considered for best picture, but now they've kind of been allocated for their own category, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, and I know you will have your own you have your own things about the Oscars and yada yada yada, but I'm specifically talking about like that's a category that's specifically talking about just animation in itself and like the form of it. So I do feel like, and it's a lot of work. It's not. I don't think it's anywhere as easy as doing.
I drool over the
I feel like there's
animation in
just
this.
so much. Yeah, the
Yeah, I
animation.
don't-
It's not
In the
just that,
first
but I also
one,
like
did
the
they
emotionality
have
of
like
this.
different Spider-Men have different art styles to them?
Yeah,
they really lean on it in this
did.
one. It's like I love the punk rock
I
one.
don't-
He's like looks like like you said, the album covers of the Sex Pistols, or
Sex
just like
Pistols album covers.
the magazines and stuff. It's like so
Yeah.
cool.
I do think that this one, like I think that's the biggest difference. I think the first one, they have a lot of different characters, but when I think about it, it's like they have kind of this weird quirky animation for each of the characters, but I don't think it's specific to the universes that they're from. This one, they really lean into that. And I think that's what's really cool about this movie.
Yeah, certainly cool.
It just looks awesome.
But you know, it would be, if they won, it would be purely based on the aesthetic and not anything having to do with the story.
Damn
which
it.
is fine. Which is
Hold on.
fine.
Luis B did bring up a good point, and I did see this movie, and the story in that movie is actually pretty good. So yeah, I think Puss in Boots is up there. I don't even know if it's Puss in Boots 2, but yeah, the Puss in Boots movie that came out earlier this year. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That have a really good animation. So.
Damn it, Puss in Boots!
Damn it, Puss in Boots!
Charlie, ignore this.
Wait, I
comment
thought
here.
Puss in Boots was last year.
Yeah.
Don't look at this comment.
Yeah.
Tears and King will win the Oscar.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The way
Let's
the Oscars are going, they're like, we'll give it to whatever you people want. Whatever you like, we'll give it to that. Oh, you like the Zelda game? We'll give it to that. Whatever you like, we'll give it to that. Fuck the Oscars. Okay.
Okay.
the-
Anyway,
to the-
Mighty Ducks 3.
The heroes of this
Those
movie were not the writers, not the directors. It was the animators who, again, because McCurdy and I are like, who won out in this movie? Was it Shamik from fucking 212? Was it
Oscar
I
Isaac.
don't know,
Isaac.
like anybody. No, it was the selling point of this movie is the art style. This is like giving the toast to Roger Deakins for Skyfall. It's just like, what does Skyfall have to offer? A really fucking good looking movie. So to the animators who made this, I've been very cynical all night. Let me just turn off the cynicism. It's a beautiful movie. If you like the first one, you'll like this one too, no doubt. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, you're going to see it anyway. So, but me, I'm just very critical of the things that I love the most. Most other people are in denial. And then the next day they wake up feeling depressed and they don't know why. And then they think about reaching for that pistol, putting it to their temple and pulling the trigger.
Okay.
But to the
I'm saying
animators who continued
monetized.
a revolutionary animation style that is motherfucking gorgeous. So to the animators.
To the animators.
Good night, y'all.